Hey everyone. Um, Welcome to my stream. I've been really excited. I've been looking to do this for a long time. But I'm planning to do like a little deep dive on the Glacier archetype and kind of talk about what that type of deck is trying to do. Go through a replay and hopefully play some games as well. Yeah, it's a topic that kind of came up many times, I feel, over the last couple weeks. And kind of excited to talk about it. Hey, Alec, how's it going? Thanks for dropping by. I always thought like I could easily do this as a video and just record it. But it's always more fun to do this live, get some more interaction. Phil, how's it going? Okay, I guess I'm just gonna start. My plan was just like talk for a little bit about Glacier as an archetype, talk about how it's supposed to be played, or at least how I think it's supposed to be played, and talk about how different runners might respond and play against it. And then, as I said, I do have a replay that was shared to me recently that I'm excited to go over that I haven't looked over. I'll start here. I guess this is why it picked up and why it came up is obviously I played Glacier at Worlds. And it's not something that's seen very often anymore. And I attribute this to the existence of Rashida. So prior to Rashida existing, I feel like Corps were a lot slower, and it essentially created this situation where Corps were not able to go fast enough and score out all the way to 7 points without losing on centrals. And I think because of Rashida, like it's kind of pushed Corps to allow them to go faster. So now we can play stuff like PD where we can kind of like ignore our centrals a little bit and we can just like windmill agendas through the remote and score really quickly and somewhat reliably get to 7 because Rashida is very strong. And it draws you cards really efficiently and gets you money. So, essentially, like, the existence of faster Corps has pushed runners to go a lot faster, which is something that was very interesting reflecting on when I went to our weekly meetup last Tuesday, where I was talking through one of our local players about this aggressive style Lou deck. And there's this very specific moment where we kept his hand and it was like Imp and Knobcurie and all these things that just like attack the Corp. And it's a great hand against a PD who goes install Rashida, install Ice, take a credit. Cause then you go slam the Imp, run, trash something, get a Lou trigger, and you're hurting the Corp, you're setting yourself up, things are going good. And I was talking to them through about keeping that hand, and they had already kept the hand. They already decided to keep. And I was like, that's it. That's really interesting because I would have never kept that hand because if the Corp goes Ice HQ, Ice R&D, take a credit, you're so screwed. But like, I guess that's just not how most of the time Corps are playing these days. So I guess it's just like a big reflection on how differently the meta has evolved over the years. But I feel like there's still a good amount of room for the Glacier type as an archetype, for Glacier as an archetype. As long as ways of cheating, ice breaking doesn't get pushed too far. So we're talking cards like Bankar and Botulus. And I'll talk a lot about that as we go as well. Should we start planning a celebration of life now for when Rashido Rotatos? It's going to be a different world. And maybe this actually, like my talk now might be very relevant when Rashida rotates, because I really do feel like without Rashida, like Corps have to go slower, and a lot of people need to like adapt to that and figure out what to do and what the Corps' best way of approaching a game of Netrunner looks like when you're forced to go slower. Oh, and I assume like they might release new cards that like kind of try to replace what Rashida does, and only time will tell what, like, to the extent that that will be successful. So let's talk about BTL, or let's talk about Glacier in general. So like first of all, what is Glacier? So I define Glacier as like a corp deck that is trying to, your game plan is to put taxing ice everywhere, and you're very late game focused. So usually that involves having a strong defensive upgrade to kind of lock down that remote in the late game. So you have taxing ice, and essentially the proposition that you're setting up is there's just going to be this end game scenario where you have this remote that costs a lot of money, and the defensive upgrade is going to stop them, is going to have some kind of end the run effect. So they have to go through the remote again. And it's just going to cost way too much money, and they're not going to have enough money to get in. So the threat that a Glacier is trying to present is, if we go all the way to the end of the game, you're going to be presented in this unwinnable late game state where the corp is going to have way too much ice on their centrals. It's going to cost too much money, and we have an end the run effect on that remote. And if the runner cannot like amass a ridiculous amount of money to run that remote over and over again to tax that end the run effect, they're going to be forced to make expensive runs on centrals. So I think like the very first type of like Glacier style deck would be like ETF food coats. How ambitious am I to try to pull one of those up on the fly? I think I'm ambitious enough. What does this look like? Not what we're looking for. Specifically, I'm trying to find a deck that has Caprice in it. But if we find like essentially the world's list, if it's on here, what if we just look up Caprice? An ETF deck with Caprice. This should do. So early Glacier decks, I guess like this was my first introduction to Glacier, and I guess I should have mentioned this at the very start. I kind of see myself as like a Glacier player at heart. I always lean towards the control style of play if I can. Let's see if Matushak's list... This is fine. So, okay. Yeah, it's not exactly what we're looking for, but this is fine. So we have like a lot of ice, and mainly what we're looking for is Caprice Nice here. So the whole like deal with ETF Glacier, and I was going to say Fukos, but this doesn't play GFI, is that we're going to have this remote with Ash and with Caprice. So when the runner runs in, they're going to have to play a Caprice side game. So they have to win the side game. So they have to spend a bunch of money into the remote, try to win this side game. And if they win the side game, we have Ash, which will trace them out if we have more money than them. And then we're going to have to run back and win the Caprice side game again. And this situation sets up, like, we basically can't justify going for those odds. Those odds are just very bad. So the runner's going to have to try to win out of centrals. And what a Glacier's trying to do is we're trying to just tax the runner out by having this taxing remote, but also having taxing centrals. And essentially just like squeeze the money out of the runner until they just like can't do anything, can't make any more runs. More recently, I played a lot of Acme, and this is the deck that I played at Intercontinentals. And this deck plays double Anoetic Void. So you can play Anoetic Void, which is your like Caprice-ish end the run effect on the remote. This deck wasn't optimal. I feel like Biovault was definitely better. And I think essentially after this Acme deck, I started playing Biovault almost exclusively in my Glacier decks. And that kind of got us here. I guess like 2 years later. So my BTL deck is playing 3 Biovaults. So we have this defensive upgrade, and Biovault is insanely good because it's a defensive upgrade that is an end the run effect on the remote and is also an end the run effect on centrals. And specifically in BTL, I end up using that ability a lot, where The runner makes a run on a central, and if it costs them enough money, then we'll use the Bio Vault and we'll kick them out. And yeah, okay, so that's like kind of a very overview explanation of like the threat that a Glacier deck is trying to present. And the other thing that personally I'm most drawn to with Glacier is I mentioned that runner decks, because Corp decks go faster now, runner decks are also forced to go faster. So we see a lot of runner decks that play like run-based econ, or runner decks that have like a very proactive game plan, where they're trying to attack the Corp, they're trying to play Diversion of Funds, they're trying to play Chastushka, they're trying to play Finality. I guess Finality is not the best example. They're trying to sabotage, right? The runner has a deck that is just there to attack the Corp. And if you're playing like a deck like PD, where you're also trying to go fast, you're kind of just like playing each other's game and gonna be like, who's gonna go faster? Whereas a Glacier deck kind of play more reactively, and you can kind of stop all of the threats that the runner's trying to present. And once you've done that, then you can go about doing what you want to do. And essentially, the runner can lose the game in the deck building phase. Because if they've built their deck that's just like bankrolls and Penny Shaver or Paragon and like dirty laundries, like every single thing that says make a run on it, and you have ice on all of your centrals and they can't make free runs, then like half their cards are going to be dead cards and they're just not going to have any money. So that's a very like easy way to win the game against a runner who's built to make a lot of runs. Gonna catch up on chat a little bit. The Rise of Glacier will make me beg for Gang Sign to come back. Gang Sign's that's a good point. So yeah, that's my next point. I was going to talk about reactive runners. The only reason I would like that is because it may lead to a second episode. Is Sais at all a viable Caprice replacement? I assumed he would be, but I don't see him played like that. I think Sais is a viable Caprice replacement. Sais is really strong. Like, one result of the Sai game is you get to only access Sais, and the other result is you get to access everything but Sais. I think that's actually really, really strong. Unfortunately, the Jinteki Ice is just not good. I think that's the issue right now. Sais is a great Caprice replacement. The card on its own is amazing. But just like the Jinteki Ice is not strong. So, I can go on like a side tangent very quickly. Is like, Glacier Jinteki is so close to being good, but the ice is so damage focused that you actually, when push comes to shove, you can just run through Jinteki's ice and just take the damage. So Jinteki like really wants to play something like Obokata Protocol, where they're protecting their agendas through their damaging ice. But if you put like Send a Message or Bacterial Programming or Off-World Office, right? Or those kind of agendas in your deck, and you don't have a damage threat to follow up your Anansis and your Saisentans or your Atinis, like, you have taxing ice, but if the runner really needs to get in, they could just raindrops through it, lose a bunch of cards, and then draw back up, is kind of like a big problem, in my opinion. So yeah, that's like, when I play Hoshiko and I play against Jinteki, the Raindrops Cutstones are very, very key cards, because I'll hold on to those, and once we have a couple useless cards, I essentially get to run through your ice and just take some damage and replace my cards. That hurts Jinteki Glacier quite a bit. I've not been pronouncing Sais right. Maybe I'm not pronouncing it right, I don't know. Okay, so I've talked about like proactive runners, right? Run-based runners. That's what Glacier is good against, is against runners that are proactive. Usually Crims have a very proactive game plan. Their game plan going into like most court matchups is set. They're like, I'm going to put pressure, I'm going to make runs, I'm going to get turtle counters, I'm going to get info bounty triggers, right? And we're just going to have run-based value and win that way. But if you can like block out the successful runs, then like that's a very good way of countering the deck. So what's an example of the other type of runner, which I would call as a reactive runner? So my runner deck. Again, I'm a Glacier player at heart, so I see myself as like a control player, and I would call my World Sashiko a control deck. And in other words, it is a reactive deck. So this deck does not have a very proactive game plan. I'm not trying to, like in Arissana, you're trying to install, like some versions of Arissana, you're trying to like install Conduit, get a bunch of Trojans on the R&D ice, and like Conduit lock them. That's a very defined game plan. Whereas like this deck doesn't really have a defined game plan. I guess your late game plan in the long run is to get twinning counters. But like even then, twinning can get accesses on HQ or R&D. There's very, very, very different ways you can use your twinning counters. You can use them very aggressively. You can sit on them and use them very reactively. There's so much flexibility in this list, and this is really like my kind of list. And what a reactive runner can do against the Glacier deck is they don't have to make runs. They don't have Chastushkas that their deck is trying to get them to play. They don't have imps where they're being pushed towards trying to make runs. So we can just kind of like go through our deck, play our cards, get our money, let our fermenters kick up, and then kind of feel things out and see what the corp is doing and respond to the threats of the corp. And to me, this is like really, really fun Netrunner because you get to kind of like respond to each other based off of how you've drawn. And the runner gets to decide if the corp has drawn well enough to build actually like a super taxing remote that we can't contest. And the runner has to think about, am I going to be able to contest the remote? And if the answer is no, or if the answer is yes as well, there's usually some turns where you like pivot and try to steal the agendas out of HQ. So what's good against Glacier? Reactive runners and also HQ multi-access. So that's where like twinning is really good because twinning gives you HQ multi-access. So especially a slow deck like this BTL, we're going to try to spend a lot of time setting up. And if the runner like sits there and postures and pretends like they can run the remote, the corp is going to be pressured enough that they can't feel comfortable installing agendas in the remote, which means eventually the agendas are going to start building up in hand, which makes the conclusion of all this is that running HQ against Glacier is much, much more valuable than running R&D once the board is set up. In the early game, as the runner, get accesses where you can get free accesses, because once things start getting taxing, things are going to be expensive. But once that is the case, HQ is going to be more valuable because they have a slow game plan. Agendas should build up in HQ. One other thing that I'll mention here is like Doom Rig runners are also pretty good against Glacier. These are uncommon, I would say. Like true Doom Rig runners, I would say that maybe they're not uncommon in terms of count, but they are uncommon in terms of, I would say in terms of like their success at tournaments. So if I look at my Tau list, how do I, actually, we're not even gonna pull it up. So you could play this deck, right? If we just like imagine this Shaper deck, that's like, we're gonna install 2 to 3 copies of Turbine and have Cleaver Buzzsaw and whatever an Echelon. That's what I would call like a Doom Rig runner, where you have like this strength boosting that's really good and icebreakers that break really efficiently but boost very poorly, and they have like the strength boosting program support. And then maybe you like build all that up and then you eventually try to play a deep dive. That's what I would call like a Doom Rig runner. So that's like the Tau that I played at Intercontinentals this year. And the reason I say that like those aren't very common, at least at top tables, is because there's a lot of really fast corps. So decks that try to build that Doom Rig are not going to be very good against PDs and ASAs and Rush Obs. And those are a lot more common than Glaciers. So essentially, like that's kind of like, I knew that such decks would be present. But that's kind of what I was banking on by bringing this BTL to Worlds, was the decks that have the ability to build a Doom Rig are going to lose to the fast corpse, and as long as I dodge those guys, as long as I dodge those runners, and they don't make it to the cut and I do, then like we can kind of hopefully find that separation just through a little bit of matchup luck. And that's kind of what we were going for. I think that's kind of what we got. That's why you play the best Jinteki ETR ice ever, Data Loop. Yeah, so the problem is like Data Loop is like card taxing, is not credit taxing. It introduces a whole other aspect to Glacier that kind of makes your deck difficult to attack on certain turns, but not difficult to attack always. Which I find is not ideal, but like there's a trade-off there, right? So like when you're trying to score, if you're playing a Data Loop Cityworks deck, then your deck is going to be better set up to score than this BTL. But I think overall, the BTL on every other turn is going to be better than the deck that's playing Data Loop. Like, you never want to res a Data Loop early, but like you do want to res a Messna Chespo early. Okay. Okay, and then the last thing that I was going to talk about before jumping into replay and into some games was like the increased importance of ice placement in Glacier. And this is something that's, I feel, has decreased in importance ever since Corp decks have been faster and Rashida's been a card, is Corp decks have been faster, right? So if you draw a piece of ice, let's say a Whoredom, and we just need a piece of ice somewhere to protect a Rashida, or to protect a wall-to-wall, or to deter early runs on R&D. Most of the time, people are like, great, we have a Whoredom, let's put it there. And generally, in most decks, in most Corp decks, that's amazing, that's fine, right? Because the fact that your ice is not optimally placed, the game isn't going to go on for too many turns. So the amount that you're going to get punished for the suboptimal ice placement is not going to be too high. But if you're playing a very late game deck that is where ice placement, I would say, is a very key part of your strategy, you need to think about ice placement a lot more. And it's like an aspect of Netrunner that I feel like has lost a lot of focus over the last few years. And I think that's the point that makes Glacier specifically hard to play, is ice placement. Because your deck it speaks through the ice, the same way an asset spam deck speaks through the asset trash costs. Right? An asset spam deck protects itself by having 4-cost trash things on the board, and the runner can't afford to check and trash all of it. Whereas a Glacier deck speaks through the ice. The strength of the ice and the positioning of the ice in that equation is very, very important. And it's something that you just don't see these days, because most of the time when you're playing PD, you draw your ice and you put your ice where you need it. Sometimes there's minor ice placement decisions, but not nearly to the extent that BTL and other Glacier decks have or used to have. So in the case of Whoredom, like a Whoredom in this deck is a very unique piece of ice in the sense that it is the worst piece of ice. Sadaka and Rhyme are tech ice, so these don't count. Whoredom's the worst piece of ice in this deck, but it plays a very important role. You just need to figure out where the best place to put it is, and usually that's just a piece of ice for archives, so that you can tax free archive runs. Or against Bankar, it's there to eat a Bankar trigger. But like, you basically never want Whoredom on the innermost of your server. And the importance of that is like kind of hard to think about, because it's something that's so unique to Glacier decks. Do you consider the animals and or plants on the ice in placement? Like Whoredom just has flowers, so it's not very scary. See, I will say that's really funny that you mentioned this, because I I don't consider that in placement, but you consider it when you put cards in your deck in terms of art. So I think Anansi, the main art, like the original Anansi art, is the best Anansi art. Because this is so iconic. Everybody has seen this. When you res an Anansi, everybody's like, oh no. And you see this like this dark green, red spider, and it's super iconic. So I have never used an Anansi alt art. Because when you res an Anansi and it's not this art, people are like, oh, okay, like, you know, that's fine. But like, when you res an Anansi with the original art, it strikes a certain fear that just can't get replaced. It's very important. Liga's art is iconic. Yes. Okay. I talked a lot, but if anybody has questions, please bring them up in the chat. Also, I understand that most of my viewers watch after the fact, because my stream schedule is non-existent. So yeah, please do like feel free to like reach out or also ask questions on YouTube, and I'm always pretty good at answering those in the YouTube comments. If you do it in the YouTube comments, it'll be best because I think other people will be able to see it, and benefit from my answers, because usually I put a decent amount of effort in answering questions. Yeah, so that's like Glacier in general. That was like the little talk I had prepared for Glacier in general. Now I'll talk like a little bit about BTL, and then I'm going to get into this replay, and then hopefully play a few games. So BTL in particular is everything that I said applies, because this is a Glacier deck, right? It has a couple. Usually, most decks that you play, corps in general, want to have like different game plans. Sometimes when I say different game plan, like I would say the Asa that I played at Continentals has the game plan that is like, we're going to set up Skunk Void and we're going to score through this unbreakable upgraded remote with Skunk Void. And the alternate game plan is you can go really fast. You have the ability to just rush runners out by having money taken from Nico Campaign or a Rashida firing, scoring your off-world office with wage workers, and you can just like out-tempo the runner without Skunk Void. And generally decks that go faster gives you more ability to do that, because you can kind of play to how the runner is doing. So if the runner gives you certain windows, gives you certain opportunities, you can take advantage of them. Now, a Glacier deck doesn't really have that ability, because if the runner gives you a scoring window, sometimes it's actually better not to score, because scoring costs you money, costs you time, and your time might be better spent solidifying your board. It's really hard to explain this point without finding a certain situation, so I guess I'll just leave it at that. But there are some like alternate win conditions here. So in my mind, the key ultimate win condition is Rig Shooter. So we have a 1 of Trojan Horse, and we have SDS drone deployment. And specifically, this is really good against Crim, because Crim plays 1 of each breaker. So if you ever get the opportunity to SDS a breaker or Trojan Horse a breaker, if you get the right breaker, usually the barrier breaker, you'll kind of just lock them out if you have your ice placement correct. And you can just win the game that way. Of course, through all of this, you're trying to build the board, you're trying to get your Biovault safely in a remote, and you're trying to get to that end game position where your remote costs too much and your centrals cost too much. Now, obviously, the other win con here is Clearinghouse. I think Clearinghouse, and I say this, actually, Peter H. says this in my decklist write-up, is like, Clearinghouse isn't really an alternate win con so much as it's a 7-point agenda. You advance this up, you get it to 6 advancements, and if you score it, you get 7 points because the runner's dead. That's like really the best way to see this. This isn't an alternate win con. It does have the benefit of pretending to be like an agenda. Well, I mean, again, it is an agenda, but if the runner runs into it, they don't get anything. That's a pretty good benefit. But I wouldn't really see this too much as like an alternate win con, and I would really say rig shooters like the alternate win con. Yeah, and then like we have the Winchesters for HQ. Our main taxing ice is Mesnachesville, Pharos, and a Ket and Treeline. This will be matchup dependent and also dependent on what you draw, but that's a good roster of taxing ice. 2 Mesnachesville, 3 Treeline, 2 Pharos, 3 a Ket. Usually Pharos can kind of hold down a server on its own, so wherever it goes, you want it on the inside, and you want it triple advanced, and usually you can just put like a Hordem on top of it or a Rhyme on top of it to block Bankar, and it will do for whatever server it's protecting. Whereas the other ice, generally you need to have 2, maybe 3. How's Yellow Glacier right now? Yeah, Glacier stream. Yellow Glacier... How is Yellow Glacier right now? Yellow Glacier's good. We saw... What did we see? What was the... Rotom Appliance played Asmari at Intercontinentals, I want to say? Or Euros. He probably played it in both, but this is what Yellow Glacier looks like. Like, it's just like Reg Asmari. This deck does not have... I mean, like, it doesn't have a defensive upgrade, but it has border control, which is there kind of like a defensive upgrade, because it's an end the run effect. And we're jamming 5/3s, we got NGO fronts, and we got Echo Chamber to cheat out this fake point. This is very strong. Yeah, not too much to say about it. It's very strong. It probably has... like it might have issues against a runner who can beat the econ. Like Asmari is obviously really good econ, but if you can manage to play around it and trash the daily quests, I think it's a little too reliant on getting money through the daily quest. Back when I played Acme, I played Hedge Fund. I mean, this has Hedge Fund too, but like I played Hedge Fund and Hansi Review and 2 government subsidies, and you played daily quests, but that deck was unique in the sense that you don't actually need daily quests. Sometimes if they trash your daily quests, you can win by just playing econ operations and scoring out that way. Whereas this, I feel like, is a little too reliant on getting the daily quest. I guess you have 2 Regolith mining licenses. That's a little slow, but it's there to try to solve that problem. Compared to the BTL, the BTL is very strong when it has wall-to-wall. I wouldn't say wall-to-wall is necessary. But it's like, it's very close to being necessary. But it's not necessary. So sometimes you can just sit on hedge fund, government subsidy, and your ID gains you a ton of money. And sometimes that's good enough. But again, wall-to-wall accelerates your game plan so much. Also, NGO front is really good in BTL. So BTL has a very resilient econ package that I think is unique compared to NBN Glacier. Took down a Co with your Worlds list last weekend. Heck yeah! Love to hear it. Can you talk in some specifics about how you're trying to place ice in this deck? What are you doing if you draw ice in the wrong order? Yes, I will talk about that. Let me go through the rest of chat first. Yellow Glacier has the downside of no 7-point agenda, so it has been having time issues. That's true. Yeah, I haven't played it myself, but I can totally see that. You ever been to an actual glacier? Yeah. Yes, I went on an Alaskan cruise at the end of August. So we went on a cruise to Alaska and we saw a glacier there. If re-education counts as a kind of glacier that has done well recently, I wouldn't say so. I mean, it depends on the deck, but most of the time re-education decks are gear check decks. Okay. Let's talk about ice placement. So, obviously, you have to start by talking about Winchester. Winchester's there for HQ because it has an extra subroutine on HQ. Ideally, your HQ is just triple Winchester. Obviously, you can't do this all the time. So when do we when do we put a different ice on HQ when we don't have Winchester? I think that's like the first thing in terms of ice placement that comes up for me a lot. And I'll say these two things. So I mentioned Whoredom earlier. You essentially never, ever want Whoredom on the innermost of a server, of any server. You don't want Whoredom on the innermost of any server unless it's the lone ice on Archives. Whoredom on Archives, fine. It can be there. Great spot for Whoredom. But otherwise, you usually don't want Whoredom on the inside of a server because criminals have inside job, anarchs have Bankar. I guess against Shaper, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I guess against Shaper, it doesn't matter. But criminals and anarchs have things that interact with the outermost piece of ice, and you want your weak ice on the outside. So when would I put a Whoredom on HQ or on a remote if I need to protect a agenda flood situation or if I want to protect an early wall-to-wall? Sometimes when you're agenda flooded, this applies to all corps in general. Sometimes when you're agenda flooded, you just got to put what you have on HQ. And you just got to live with it. However, I will say that sometimes like runners won't run HQ. So I would say that's rare if you just leave HQ uniced for a couple turns and the runner never runs. But sometimes you can be a little greedy and hope that they don't run if maybe you only have one agenda in hand. Being greedy with ice placement, I think, is important here because we're looking for a long game plan that has to do with ice and the ice placement. But sometimes you just have to play what you got. So if that means you have to put a Pharos on HQ, you got to put a Pharos on HQ. And then, as I said earlier, usually one Pharos and anything over top locks down that server. So if you put a Pharos on HQ and then you end up putting something else over top that's not a Winchester, and then you start drawing your Winchesters, then essentially what Winchester becomes is more copies of Whoredom, because Winchester is now bad, just like Whoredom is bad, compared to the quality of the rest of the ice. So we're now going to use Winchester to block, or to do things that don't matter too much, like protect Archives, because we don't want our opponent to get free leech counters, to like play dirty laundry and get bankroll credits or what have you, or get Hoshiko flips. So we can kind of just like throw that there. It's mildly taxing, but if the runner really wants to get in, they can. So that's what Winchester can do. Otherwise, you just throw it out. Like I think in the grand finals, I put a Pharos on HQ, and then I put something else there, and then I started drawing my Winchesters, and I just started throwing them in Archives because my ice placement was... I felt that my ice was already good enough. Other than that, a Ket's the other like big placement ice. If you're playing against a deck that might have Hippo, a Ket is really important. So again, maybe you want to be a little bit greedy with holding your Ket behind so that you can use it to block a Hippo. Now, Hippo's not that common right now, but it might pick up in popularity as time goes on. But that's a consideration that you should have in mind when deciding to place a Ket. Otherwise, Pharos, Treeline, both of this ice is very similar in my mind. They're both very taxing. You want to advance your Pharos 3 times. You want to advance your Treeline probably 3 times or more, depending on if you have wall-to-wall ticking. And this is going to be where your main taxing ice is mainly Pharos and Treeline. So that means you want them on the inside. Any innermost position will do. Same with Messna Chessfoe. Messna Chessfoe is fine on the outside as well because it has an on-encounter ability. So if they're trying to Bankar through it, they're still going to lose money. But it's not the ideal spot. But yeah, Messna Chessfoe on the inside is great. Treeline, Pharos, definitely you want on the inside. And then like you gotta have to think about how much does this ice cost the runner relative to how much money they currently have, or how much money that you think they're going to be able to get. Because if the ice costs them, let's say, 2/3 of their credit pool, that might be good enough. That might be good enough for you to start putting Bile Vaults behind it, or putting agendas behind it. Because it is enough of a tax for them that they need to think about the long-term consequences of them running this server. So you don't necessarily need to have a server that costs the runner all of their money. It just needs to be a significant enough amount where if they run now, they can't run the next 2 times because they're not going to have enough money to go over and over and over again. Usually I would say at least 2/3 of their credit pool. Yeah. I guess like if they have credits that are just in their credit pool and not on the board in the form of fermenter. Usually I'd say at least 2/3 of their credit pool. And then obviously you have the 3, what I would call our tech ice. So you have border control, Rime, and Sedaka, specifically Rime and Sedaka. Rime is here for Bankar. It's Bankar tech. You put it on the outside of a piece of a server. It has to cap the server. So when you install Rime, you need to be like, I'm going to put this Rime here, and I'm not going to install any more ice on this server, and I'm okay with that. And if that's not the case, don't install the Rime. This is for the Bankar matchups. If you're not playing against Bankar, Rime doesn't really do anything. So you can kind of put it wherever. In the grand finals, I put it on archives to pretend it was border control. Otherwise, it's whatever. It's really there for Bankar. Against Essa, you can make your Pharos 11 strength, and Essa can only take 8 core damage, so they can't use Begamot to break your 11 strength Pharos. That's a thing. And then Sedaka's here to trash twinning. Usually you put this on R&D, because HQ should get very taxing very quickly with Winchester. I've heard some people say, like, you want to put Sedaka on HQ or R&D, and you want to put it on the one where you think the runner's going to run so that you can trash their twinning. That's true, but oftentimes that's a little hard to predict. So as a general rule, I usually just put it on R&D, and I don't think about it too much. Because, and that's specific to this deck, because this deck is playing 3 Winchesters. So I'm probably going to be, when I draw a Winchester, I'm probably going to be inclined to install the Winchesters on HQ. And if I have a Sedaka sitting there, the install cost of ice on HQ is going to go up. Whereas if I put the Sedaka on R&D, I can stack Winchesters on HQ. HQ is going to get more and more taxing. R&D will not have Winchesters on it, because I would prefer the Winchesters on HQ. So R&D might be a little bit less taxing. We might have a little bit less ice there. And there's kind of a bit of like a risk there. If the runner decides to just like only run our HQ and ignore R&D, then maybe they get to twinning HQ a bunch, but the trade-off is hopefully we can tax them with our Winchesters. And then the border control. The border control is here for Light the Fire, and it's here for Pinhole Threading. That's it. Sometimes the border control can be used, like, if it's in front of a Pharos, then, or behind a Pharos, I guess. Again, you always want the Pharos on the inside, just because they can't Bankar it. But sometimes they like spend a bunch of money on the Pharos, and you can border control them out. It's an end the run effect the same way a Biovault is an end the run effect. But like border control itself is a bad piece of ice. $4 for 1 strength and 2 subroutines is not a good piece of ice. And Glacier wants higher quality ice than that. It wants better numbers. It wants numbers that have like the res to strength ratio plus the subroutine. It just needs to be better. Yeah, so this costs Cleaver 1 credit. A same cost to res Treeline costs Cleaver 3 credits. And if you advance it once, which in BTL is just gains you a credit, so it's free, that costs Cleaver 5 credits compared to Border Control's 1 credit. So as a standalone piece of ice, Treeline's so much better. That's just like a very direct comparison. Border Control itself, as a piece of ice, not good. But it's there to beat. You have to have an answer to Light the Fire, so usually you want to put it on the remote. Against Anarchs, you want to put it on the remote, because they might have Light the Fire. And against Criminals, Criminals usually play pinhole threading, so what I end up usually doing is like putting it on archives and being very sneaky and not resing it. And some players will just go and pinhole archives, and then you res the border control and you pop the border control. And you get rid of a pinhole threading that way. So that was like the line that I took in the grand finals, where I had border control and HQ rhyme on archives, and the plan was to not res either, to pretend like one of them was border control. Well, I guess we're threatening that either one could be border control, and hope that Dan doesn't take that risk and goes R&D, or if he does, he has a 50-50 of guessing wrong. You need to be very careful about border control, because if the runner's playing Kurupira, they can farm counters through this and then bypass your Pharaohs. So really, really, this is a tech ice, and you got to be very careful about where you put these 3 pieces of ice, with the exception of Sadaka going on R&D. The other thing about Sadaka that I didn't mention is, like, Sadaka's subs are just really good. Look at the top 3 cards of R&D and either arrange them in any order. Usually when you're playing against Glacier, the runner finds themselves going for R&D single accesses. And if you res Sadaka and fire it, you now know what cards they're going to access, which is an insane ability, especially if they've broken a tree line and a Mess to Chest foe, and then they hit the Sadaka. Really, really impactful. There's a Glacier across the lake. Right, okay. Yeah, just catching up on chat a little bit. Okay. Again, happy to answer questions as we go, but also sound off in YouTube comments. I'm going to jump into the replay. So this is a replay that's sent to me by Prinny, who I believe is a relatively new player who has been playing a lot of my BTL Glacier, from what I understand. I say they're a new player. I don't know how new. I don't know too much, but I do know that they have decided to pick up a lot of my decks to like play in their early stages of learning the game, which I think is great. And I mentioned this to them as well. Like, Glacier is a very hard deck to play, especially when you're starting, because you're going to get punished for placing your ice in incorrect positions, and it's really hard to know how to place your ice correctly when you're starting to learn this game. So I think it's like a very, I don't know the best way to describe it, but it's definitely like not the easiest path to start in learning Corp. But yeah, it's a great way to learn, I feel, because your games are going to go long, which means you have a lot of different points in the game where you are able to learn. Whereas going aggressive, runner going aggressive, somebody wins, kind of hard to learn from that. So, I haven't looked at any of this myself, so this will all be completely new to me. Did you ever test out a single RPC? Imagine it's a dead card until late. I did test a single RPC, actually. There was an RPC in this deck at some point. The idea was that once you scored 2 agendas, the runner knew that you would be on a 5-3 agenda suite, so they don't have to run the last agenda until you install double advance. And you could install the last agenda, don't advance it, and then RPC and you win. And I used to play this, I don't remember what Wayland idea was out of. I want to say it was out of Scorpios. Where it was just like a very flexible deck. No, it wasn't out of Scorpios. What am I talking about? It was out of the advancement one, SSO Industries. And you'd play Consulting Visit, and you'd have Biotic, and you would have Red Planet Couriers, and it was just like a super flexible deck. And it was an idea that I kind of took from that. Eventually, the RPC got cut because I found that I was winning my games before we got to the last score. So a lot of the times a Glacier deck will win the game in terms of the board state. You're in a commanding winning position where if you don't screw up, if you don't misplay, you're guaranteed to win. And a lot of other Netrunner decks like PD is one that comes to mind, is like, you don't really know that you're going to win the game because you can always lose agendas out of R&D or lose agendas out of HQ. Or the runner can like pull off some kind of unexpected trick and run the remote. Like light the fire or whatever. But with Glacier, you usually have a very, very strong idea about what the runner is and is not capable of. So a lot of the times, by the time that you get to the last score, you've already won or you've already lost. You've either locked them out because you've trashed their barrier breaker and they just can't break any barriers, or your servers are just super taxing and the runner has like 5 credits. So that trick of RPCing a 5-3 was just never relevant. But it is a very neat trick to keep in mind. Yeah, Lost Geek was also on Punitive. I think this is funny. It's always interesting because groups scout each other, right? At big tournaments. So like my group was my group was scouting to see what NWE were playing. You know, they've got this NEH deck, they've got Amani Sinai, they've got Crypto Crash. So when one of us goes and plays against them, we have a little bit of information going into the game about what they're playing. Like every group does this. And I think Lost Geek was under the impression that I was playing Punitive. I don't know if that was like directly information that was just incorrect, or if it was because they saw Bridgman and other people of members of Unbanned playing Punitive in Restoring Humanity, and they heard like Unbanned member, Punitive Counter-Strike, and then they saw that I was playing BTL. And they just kind of like assumed that Punitive was in the BTL. That was like just a really interesting anecdote from Worlds. Yeah, but there's lots of different ways to play the BTL. But I'm like a Glacier player at heart. My brain is very control and Glacier oriented. So like if I can go the Glacier route with with as little tricks as possible and just try to tax the runner out on money, I will generally go that way. Because the less tricks that you're relying on, the more consistent your deck is going to be. Never advance an SDS to kill a Fractor seems good in certain circumstances. Yeah, it could be. That's true. Yeah. It's just a consistency issue, right? But that's very true. Like that could be very good in certain circumstances. But the question is like, does that circumstance arise enough for you to justify that card slot? And I think the answer is no, because it's really good against Criminal. Your matchup against Criminal, first of all, is already very good. Because of SDS and because of Trojan Horse, and because Criminals have very run-based econ, so you can like block that out to begin with. Even at despite you having a rig shooter game plan, you can just block out the Criminals' money and just make their life awkward that way. But the thing is, against Anarchs, you can't. That window to kill an Icebreaker against Anarchs only happens late. And it also probably doesn't happen anymore because, and this is like the huge benefit of playing an unknown deck at a major tournament, is nobody knows what's in this deck. So when you see BTL Glacier, prior to Worlds, you might not be thinking rig shooter. You might just be thinking this is a Glacier deck, we're going to tax you on money, that's it. And what I noticed was a lot of people playing Crim played 2 copies of their breakers, but once they install the first copy, the second copy gets Bankard, or it gets moshinged, and it just kind of goes into the bin, and nobody thinks twice about it. And that's the way I would play as well. So it's only after that second copy goes into the bin is when the rig shooter aspect of the built to last gets turned on. So against Anarchs, especially now that this is a known deck, runners who are playing against this BTL, especially Anarchs, should not be discarding their second copy of breakers. Okay, jumping into the replay. Let's see what we got. So, we're against Lou. Now, I'm going to focus most of this analysis from the corpse perspective, so I'm not going to concern myself too much about what the Lou deck is trying to do or what it has. At the get-go, Lou is a very aggressive ID. So from the ID, like when you see Freedom or when you see Lou or like decks that like interact with Trashing Corp cards, they're probably going to have a very like central attack game plan. And if we can shut that down, we can probably shut down a good number of cards in their deck. That's the very first thought that goes through my mind. So that's, to me, is objective number one. We don't want to create a remote yet, because that just gives us another server that we need to protect. In case they have Knobcurie or they're like imping stuff. Mainly it's because of Knobcurie. We don't want to overextend and create a remote yet. And to that end, this hand is amazing because we have 2 pieces of ice that is very high quality ice. A Ket and Mess and Chesvo, very high quality. Again, like Hordem is low quality ice, right? Rhyme, Border Control, Sadaka, Tech Ice. Don't want that. If the Ket was a Winchester, this hand would be perfect. Well, actually, if Secure and Protect was a Winchester, this hand would be perfect. Because ideally we go like Mess and Chest for R&D, Winchester HQ, advance. That'd be the ideal turn 1. But this hand is great. We got government subsidy coming down the line. We have 2 pieces of ice for HQ and R&D. We can start by just shutting down whatever threats that the runner has, and then we'll figure out our board building from there. So, hand is great. Looks like both players keep, and we draw the Winchester. Ooh, we're so good at this game. Okay, so here, my turn 1 would be Winchester HQ, Mess and Chesvo R&D, advance the Mess and Chesvo. We don't want to install the Ket because we might be on Hippo, and Ket is what we want on the outermost of our servers if we are afraid of Hippo. There is a possible line where you go install Winchester HQ, Mess and Chesvo R&D, Ket Archives if you want to be super rude, to block out Dirty Laundry. I don't think you do that here because the Ket is really good against Hippo, and Ket's just a really good ice. If Ket was Hordem, or if we had Hordem as one of the other 3 cards in our hand, then I think that's a very justifiable line. Is Winchester HQ, Mess and Chesvo R&D, Hordem Archives. And then we just like completely block out Dirty Laundry. Every copy of Dirty Laundry they don't get to play is just so good because yes, runners might be able to play them eventually, but having to hold it in hand will make their hand so awkward. And this is something that you kind of, the only way to understand what I'm talking about is actually to play Criminal against Glacier. Like, take a run-based Criminal and play against BTL. And have the BTL just like set up centrals. The Crim is going to draw their Dirty Laundries. They're going to draw their bankrolls, their bravados, and they're just not, and their mutual favors, and their diversion of funds. And life is going to be so awkward because they just have all these cards in their hand that they can't play. And eventually they're going to start discarding them. And the value of that is really, really high. Okay, so Winchester HQ. We put the Ket on R&D, and we advance the Ket. That's fine. Again, we want the Ket for the outermost because of Hippo. In terms of ice quality, though, like Mess and Chesvo is also just a better piece of ice than a Ket is. Because if they decide to poke R&D, I would rather res a Mess and Chesvo and have the runner lose their money than the Ket. Although the Ket is a very close second. It's a very, very close second because the Ket subroutine is really good. So, yeah, not what I would have done, but I don't think this is totally fine. So let's see what the runner does. They're going to play the price. Lost Audrey, Strike Fund, Dirty Laundry, Audrey. Looks like we're installing an Audrey. So now we need to be like, we can't let them get Audrey counters. But we kind of already had that game plan coming in, which was ice everything. They draw a card, click 2. Draw a card, put a Botulus in HQ. Fine. We said Audrey opener gross. So Audrey's like completely fine, actually. If the price had hit a daily cast, that would have been worse for us. The price installing Audrey is such an inactive card. You have to activate the Audrey. right? Audrey itself doesn't do anything until you're actually trashing cards with it and getting virus counters. And in order to trash cards and get virus counters, you need to make runs. So if we, once again, shut down the runner's ability to make runs, this is just another dead card, except they installed it for free, right? So botchless on HQ, which means we want something else on HQ, so that they don't get this run on HQ. So we start our turn, we draw the Mesnachesvo. Here, I would honestly consider Secure and Protect, and just put a Winchester on HQ with Secure and Protect. We drew another Mesnachesvo, so that's perfectly fine too. Is Mesnachesvo HQ, advance the Mesnachesvo, take a credit. But like, is Lou playing Twinning? No. Maybe? I don't know. But like, what's the Secure and Protect doing for us? Not too much. And the Mesnachesvo might be good on a remote. So I think I would use the Secure and Protect here and put a Winchester on HQ. But I have a feeling that we are not going to do that, and we're going to put the Mesnachesvo there, and I think that's also totally fine. But we made a remote. Okay, so that's a misclick? Okay, yeah. So this is too aggressive. We want to stop the runner from doing what they want to do. That's our first priority. And this is very different from what most corp decks are doing nowadays. So this is like, I'm explaining all this with the understanding and with the appreciation that this is very different from every other corp deck. If you're PD, or if you're ASA, or if you're any corp that isn't Glacier, you gotta go. You gotta, like, you're gonna flood up soon. Your cards are gonna incentivize you to make a remote. And your late game isn't that good. So we need to start establishing a remote and getting that threat out there. BTL or Glacier in general, we don't have that pressure. Most corps have a game plan and they're trying to execute that game plan. In my mind, Glacier's number one game plan is to stop the runner's game plan if the runner has a game plan. So this is like, matchup knowledge is very key. Specifically in the Lou matchup, I would characterize Lou as like the premier ID, where you see the ID and you're like, you want to make central runs. Your deck is built to attack my centrals. If I can stop you from doing that, I can win the game. Other IDs that are like that, I would say Freedom is like that, and Zaya is like that. Although Zayas have been playing like Twinning nowadays, so Zayas can be a lot more flexible. Yeah, so like Twinning Crim is kind of like a different thing. But like Sable is like that. But again, like if they're playing Twinning, the equation changes a lot. But like any Crim that isn't playing Twinning, I would say is like that, where they have like a pretty proactive game plan of attacking centrals. And our number one game plan is just stopping them from being able to do that. So, yeah, don't like the new remote here. The other thing is, like, Biovault isn't, like, what is Biovault actually doing for us? Nothing, right? If this was wall-to-wall, I think it can be justified, because we're going to start getting wall-to-wall triggers, we're going to start drawing more Operation Econ, we're going to start advancing our board. But even if it was wall-to-wall, I don't think I would have made this play. Because this Winchester, like, this is going to be prime time to run HQ. Like, Slam Imp run HQ is coming. We don't want that. Okay. So this is very interesting. Maybe a Ket is a nod towards committing 5 credits early, closer to subsidy. Yes, it can be. It can be. When I play BTL, I usually don't make that consideration too much, because I found that it's not a concern. If you res your ice, like, if I install Mesnachesvo here and Mesnachesvo R&D, Winchester on HQ, and you force me to res both my ice and I go to 0, obviously I can't res both turn 1, but if you like, I'm only resing Winchester, by the way, if the HQ run matters. Right, so if you like install imp run, then I'll res Winchester. Otherwise, you can access because there's nothing in hand. So basically what I'm trying to say is, if on turn 2, you make me res both my ice and I go to like 1 or 2 credits, I am perfectly okay spending 3 turns clicking for credits and playing government subsidy. Because I know that rezzing this ice will stop you from getting central value that your deck is built to do. Now, against like other late game decks, like if you're playing against Hoshiko, that might not be the case. And in that situation, maybe you want to conserve your money so that you can play government subsidy and go a little faster. But in this matchup, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. Yeah. Okay. So install Botulus on the remote turn 1 is, in my mind, a very committal play. This tells me that this is a runner who's very willing to run. Nothing I'm going to do with that information right now, but information I'm going to keep in my head. So install Botulus run. That's cool. Like, yeah, so we've kind of like ran into this issue that we've put ourselves in, which is rezzing the Mesnechesvo seems good for the purposes of this run, but now we can't res any of our central ice. And that is not ideal. But I imagine we res here, and then we don't use the counter. We break the lose 3, bounce. Fine. We're going to laundry HQ, right? So now we've like opened ourselves up to run event plus value on an HQ run. In this case, it's fine. We don't have anything in hand. So they might as well have played it on archives. Play Steel Skin, fine. We draw SDS. So here we're probably just clicking for 3. But again, we want ice on HQ. So the $5 that we spent on Mesnechesvo, we'd much rather have in our credit pool right now so that we can reinforce HQ. Because again, this imp is coming. So we don't... Yeah, there's nothing we can do about it here, unfortunately. So we're probably just clicking for 3. And I don't think I would advance the Biovault. I just let it sit there. But advancing it's fine. Yeah, it kind of shows our hand a little bit. But it's not that big of a deal. It's a very, very, very small decision. Now, runner goes draw. This is very interesting. Like, I'm peeking at the runner's hand a little bit, and it looks like they have imp. If I was playing runner, I'd be very tempted to slam imp and run HQ, although we would lose this Botulus, and I guess that's the nature of playing an Audrey deck. So, just an interesting observation. I have not played Lu, period. So this runner deck is very new to me. So I'm like learning about the Lu as we go as well. The Biovault gem is probably looking to set the runner back with the Mesnechesvo ability. Yeah, but like we're not in a position where we need to make a play. Yeah, I guess that's the end of the sentence. We're not in a position where we need to make a play. Sometimes you need to make a play, and you need to like set up this threat and pretend like this is something the runner needs to run, so that they go after it and they lose money to Mesnechesvo. We're not in that situation because we can just like block the runner's value by icing centrals. By going for this line, it has opened us up to a couple issues in terms of central protection. Yeah, but musing on intentions definitely is a good way of looking at it. Draw, moshing, labor rights, buzzsaw, trank, fine. Install simulchip, fine. So we have tranquilizer. So this is like a big issue for us because we're paying $7 for Pharos. So once I see tranquilizer in the bin and simulchip on the board, especially because we have Botulus and simulchip, we're probably not going to use Pharos at all this game, because Pharos is going to be too expensive. It's excellent that we drew both of our Mesnechesvo, because this is probably going to be the card that does a lot of work in terms of the ice department. Treeline will be fine. We don't want to invest too much in the treeline, because it's 1 sub and can be broken by Botulus with 1 counter. Maybe we can tax Botulus counters with Pharos, but with the Tranquilizer, we need to have a lot of money before we can justify going for that. Couple thoughts going through my head, just seeing seeing what happened on the runner's turn. It also feels great that the runner didn't run HQ here. So we'll take that blessing and we'll run with it. Drew a second agenda. That's unfortunate. But we're probably just clicking for 3. If we click for 3, next turn we play the government subsidy. Figure it out from there. Yeah, but again, like the $5 of the Message Chest res set us back quite a bit. Like we might be at 10 credits right now. We probably wouldn't be because the second botulus wouldn't have been installed. So the game actually diverges quite a bit. If we went for the secure and protect HQ line instead of the Message Chest on the remote line that turn. It goes to show like small decisions early takes the game in a wildly different direction. But this is a replay review, so I'm going to play on and we'll take the position as we get and talk about what we might do given a certain position. So here it's a very easy click for 3 for me. Message Chest HQ is fine. And then draw last click. So we never want to draw last click in general. Yeah. But again, it's a newer player. But yeah, you never want to draw last click in general because you might draw something that changes what you're doing on the turn. Spin Doctor is a great card to get though. I don't like the Message Chest HQ because of 2 reasons. So the first one is we saw the Tranquilizer and we saw the Simul chip and we've seen the Botulus. So as I mentioned, Message Chest is going to be a very important piece of ice in this matchup long term. So I would really like the Message Chest on the remote because you have a double Message Chest remote, can tax the runner out on money, and that'll be very important because your other ice is not going to be good for against Tranquilizer and Botulus. The other thing is we have this secure and protect in our hand, and like it's a piece of ice, but it's a piece of ice only for centrals. So we might as well use it and get a Winchester. So if we want to put a second ice on HQ, which I think is a great idea, I would much rather use the secure and protect for a Winchester here. The other thing that we can think about though is like the runner had an opportunity to run HQ last turn and they didn't. So maybe we can bank on that and just hope they don't run for another turn or another 2 turns, I guess. And we can just click for 3, go to $8 and get this government subsidy off. It's a risky line, but I think it's a line that you can probably take. Steelskin, Paladin, Solidarity Badge, Cookbook. Okay, we are set up now. So that's really good for the runner. They still don't have MU. Do another subsidy. So because we drew last turn, we have now forced ourselves to do something this turn. Because last turn we were at 5 cards in hand. So if you think about the cards you have in your hand, if you clicked for 3 credits last turn and went to 8, this turn you would mandatory draw, click for 2, play government subsidy, and you would end the turn with 5 cards. This turn we don't want to click for 3 because we'd have to discard a card. So what do? We probably like install the Spin Doctor, res the Spin Doctor, click for 2 credits, and discard the 2 agendas and shuffle them both back. Looks like we're going for that. I think I would put the Spin Doctor in a new remote, because this gives away that this is an upgrade, and this could be an NGO front, or it could be any advanceable thing, so I wouldn't give away that this is an upgrade. Very minor. Okay, let me catch up on chat after that. Do you have enough ice to entertain trashing unresed infected with botulus ice? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Although the botulus that's on HQ right now is on a Winchester. which makes me not want to overwrite it. I would say if it was a tree line on HQ, or if it was a Hortum, then I would overwrite it with the Mess and Chestful install or with the Secure and Protect install. Because it's Winchester, Winchester has 3 subroutines. So at some point, if we purge virus counters, Botulus is going to start the turn with 1 counter. Again, if it's tree line, we can get that out of there. But unresed Winchester, we can probably keep that around. This is a very important moment to say that in the Crim matchup, and in the matchup where you're playing against a Hoshiko with Boomerang, like my Hoshiko, Boomerang is a way of cheating ice breaking, and it is such a key card. So this is something that is not immediately obvious, but is something that's very, very important when you're playing BTL Glacier or when you're playing Glacier in general with a lot of big ice, is you need to strand those boomerangs. So when Crim goes install Boomerang Diversion, don't care what the situation is, don't care what the ice is, don't res that ice. Don't res the ice, let them in, give them your money, and then overwrite the ice with something else. Or, if you have enough money, what you usually do is you would actually just install over it with the intention that you're never going to res that ice until they decide to give up on that boomerang to install their second copy. So, oftentimes that's what I do, is they install boomerang on an unresed ice, and I'll just never res that ice, but I'll keep it around. Because usually decks that play Boomerang have 2 boomerangs, especially criminals, and the thinking that's going to go through their head is, there's a boomerang there, and it's on the HQ ice, and I might still use it at some point. Therefore, the other copy of Boomerang I just drew, I'm not going to use this, because maybe the one on the board will end up getting used. And every time that thought goes through their head is a time where they're not using Boomerang. Which is what you want. So keep the ice around, don't res the ice, and eventually they're going to realize that you're never resing your ice, so they're going to over-install their Boomerang, and now you can res your ice. With that said as well, Boomerang only shuffles if it's a successful run, so every time they use Boomerang to get in somewhere, don't care if it's like... Well, I mean it matters, but... Essentially, it's really important to Biovault or border control that run to make them lose the boomerang. Especially if it's border control, because border control only works on that server. So if they boomerang and run your border controlled server, pop the border control. Just to get rid of the boomerang. Super, super important. On the flip side of that thought, if you're playing Runner against Glacier, don't boomerang unresed ice. If you're playing against somebody who knows this line of play, don't boomerang unresed ice. Only boomerang ice that's been resed, because you're guaranteed to be able to use it and hopefully shuffle it back into the deck and use it again. Very, very important. From the runner perspective, would you think it's worthwhile to simul the Trank onto the res mest? No, you have a Botulus sitting on it. It's fine. It's so much more important to use the simul chip for something else that doesn't have a Botulus on it or have a solution on it already. Okay, so this draw is very unfortunate. Now, it's interesting because in most matchups, you want to throw the send messages away because SDS is almost always the better agenda. In this matchup, that might not actually be the case. We're kind of broke, and we're liable to attack on HQ soon, so I might be incentivized to trash the 2 SDS, or to discard the 2 SDS and keep the send a message. Yeah, I think that's what I do here, is I go credit, discard 2 SDS. That's what we do. But as I said, in most matchups, maybe in every matchup except for the simul chip I have lots of programs matchup, you discard the send a message and keep the SDS. Draw credit simul chip is a very passive line from the runner, so this is really good for us. Really, really good for us. It's a super passive line. Yeah, great for us. We drew Winchester, fine. We probably click for 3 here and discard the Secure and Protect. That sucks. We could click for 2 and put the Winchester in Archives, because the Secure and Protect can get us our 3rd Winchester for HQ. I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all, actually. Yeah, click for 2 and Winchester Archives is the best line here. Ooh, okay, so this is a little... Like, this sucks because we don't have money for government subsidy next turn. And we would love to play government subsidy next turn. Because the runner has been... Like, the second the runner runs HQ, we're going to have to spend money. But the runner has taken a very passive last 2 turns. So they might take another passive turn. And we really need that right now. And also, like, Secure and Protect is just so much better than installing Winchester on HQ. Because Secure and Protect installs Winchester on HQ out of the deck. And you don't have to pay the 2 credit install cost. So Winchester Archives credit is definitely the line we want to be taking. Credit Knob Curie run Archives. Okay, so this would have blocked the Knob Curie run on Archives. So now we want an ice on Archives because we don't want this Knob Curie to keep triggering. It's kind of okay for now, but like this Audrey's gonna get counters, so yeah. Draw a card. Again, very passive turn. Drew Biovault, fine. So now we're in an awkward spot again, because again, we're starting the turn at 7, and we want to click for credits to score the government subsidy. So, what do we do? We would love to go credit ice Archives, but we can't. So here I'd probably go take 3, discard Biovault. It sucks, but I think that's what we gotta do. That's a really hard line to find, by the way. Yeah, I think that's a very hard line to find, but I would go take 3 credits, discard Biovault, because you have to play this government subsidy. Our hero draws NGO Front, click 1, which is amazing. If we go like draw hedge fund, and then hedge fund government subsidy, that would have been the pristine turn, but drawing here is super risky. Because if you draw an agenda here, like, if this NGO Front was an agenda, now what do? Now we're going to, like, take 2 credits and discard 2? Like, that's so bad, right? So I can't justify taking that risk. Yeah, so I wouldn't have drawn. Hello, Mr. Streamer. Heyo, chat. How's it going, Jai? I think Gov sub the previous turn and then secure after the knob hits the table and block off Archives. Yeah. Yeah, you want to get these Gov subs. But, like, NGO Front, great draw. So now we go install Advanced NGO Front, discard Biovault. We throw out Security Protect. That's fine. Biovault is a very good card. Unfortunately, it's not that good in here. And I would just kind of, like, bank on Spin Doctor shuffling them back. Because the Secure and Protect represents a piece of ice, and we need a second ice on the R&D and an ice on Archives as soon as possible. Take a credit, Imp, run the remote, fine. We're gonna pop the NGO here, let them trash the Biovault. This is fine. This is really good for us because they're not running a central, which means we can play our government subsidies this turn. A Ket's a wonderful draw. So now we go Gov sub, a Ket Archives. Very straightforward turn. Okay, again, we don't want to draw click 2. Like, if we want to draw click 1. So we drew Spin Doctors, fine. We're gonna put the Spin Doctor in the remote. So, okay. We don't want to do this. And again, this is something that diverges drastically between playing Glacier and playing all the other runner decks that exist these days. Spin Doctor is such an important card in Glacier because you have a couple very key cards you want to shuffle back. Spin Doctor is your agenda management card, and agenda management is extremely important when you're playing a slow deck that isn't trying to score agendas early. So if the runner goes and runs this Spin Doctor, you're going to lose it. You either have to pop it to shuffle back 2 of these 4 cards in the bin, or they're going to trash it and you're going to lose the Spin Doctor. What we want the Spin Doctor to be doing is shuffling these 2 Send a Messages back into the deck. That's the number one thing. In other matchups, you want the Spin Doctor to be recurring your Bio Vaults, because the criminals are going to be pinholing them, or there's just going to be this huge economic war and you need the Bio Vaults to tax the runner's money. This matchup is not one of those matchups. In this matchup, the runner is trying to attack your centrals. So if we just keep the agendas out of HQ and hide them away in R&D, we should win this game, as long as we just keep the agendas away from HQ. So the installing Spin Doctor is very much not what we want to do. The other thing is, we don't actually know if we're going to be able to play the government subsidy next turn. Granted, the runner has been taking very passive turns, but if the runner goes and runs R&D, and we pay 3 for a Ket, and then they run HQ, and we pay 4 and then another 5 to res the 2 ice on HQ, we're not going to be able to play this government subsidy anymore. So play your econ operations while you can. And again, we have this Knobkery installed, right? So we want this a Ket on Archives, so that we can essentially what I'm seeing long term is we're going to go GovSub, a Ket Archives, and then after that we're going to probably purge or start advancing the Akets and then purge. We probably purge first, and then we start advancing the Akets. Again, just lock the runner out. They have 14 cards left. What are they doing in terms of, what are their threats? Right? Right now we've seen Imp, and we've seen Knobkery, so their threat is I'm going to run and get single accesses on centrals, which is a great threat for Built to Last Glacier to deal with. Fa says hi. Hello. Interesting that they're not using mess ability on the remote runs. I think the runner was at 0 when they made that run, which is why. Otherwise, we totally would have. I'm 100% sure that the runner was at 0. I remember looking at that. Okay. So, we res the Spin Doctor. Okay, so we can forget everything I said about using the Spin Doctor for send a message. That's exactly what this player did, I assume. Yeah, so excellent. I would have still valued playing Government Subsidy and a Ket on Archives before that, which meant I wouldn't have drawn and saw the Spin Doctor anyways. But here we are. Draw a card, run Archives. This is fine. Just pop it. Install Fermenter. Okay, so install Buffer Drive. Interesting. So now we have Fermenter. This is now an econ card that gets boosted by Knobkery. So now it's extremely important that we stop this Knobkery from getting counters. When I played Freedom in Continentals this year, that was how you got money. Was your Fermenter comes onto the board with 2 counters. I don't remember if I played Cookbook or not. But then you just it gets a counter at start of turn, you get a Knobkery counter on it, and now it's at 4. And then next turn you get another 2 counters, and now it's at 6. And I don't even pop it at 6. You just sit on it, and then next turn it goes to 8, and then you pop it at 8, and you get 16 credits. We got to be very careful about this Fermenter and this Knobkery. So, and we've drawn a bunch of ice. We have to get an ice on Archives this turn. Okay. Especially the Subliminal, right? We're going to get the Subliminal back if we ice Archives as well. Here with these 2 clicks, I would definitely go ice Archives, ice R&D. R&D is very weak right now. So, it might be Treeline Archives and a Ket on R&D is probably what I would do. Okay. So we got the Ket on R&D, but we didn't get the ice on Archives. So the runner's probably going to take a passive line again. And in every previous turn, passive lines have been very good for us. But now passive lines is getting money on the Fermenter. And that is very bad. Also, icing archives means that we can set ourselves up to purge. Like, you never want to ice. You never want to not have ice somewhere and purge, because they're just going to get a counter with their Knobkerry on the program that matters. Three advanced Ucket is so nasty for Audrey rigs. That too, right? Like, that's the other thing. We've been drawing a lot, but you don't have to click for cards. Like, just advance your Ucket and advance your board. You can advance your board without drawing new cards. That's something that's very unique to BTL. Other decks, like every other deck, can't do that. Asmari Glacier can't do that. Like, you can't improve your ice, right? But BTL can do that. So you can just sit on your board and play it slow. Have you not seen the Audrey Strike Fund Buffer Drive Solidarity combo? I have. I have. In my games, I've never played it out of Lu. But I've tried playing it out of Hoshiko, and I've found that I've never actually needed it. So by the time I get to the end of my deck, I've made so much money that I've probably already won the game. And I've never actually needed that, like, long game sustainability, but I imagine it'll be relevant here. Treeline Botulus. Treeline Archives is real good, consider we see 2 Botulus. Yeah, exactly. We want to... Yeah, we just need to get ice places. Buffer Drive installs a little sus, no strike funds in hand. Yeah, I assume it's coming, right? Draw. Okay, so the run on HQ is coming. We're just going to res the ice. Let the runner deal with it. It really doesn't matter how, so I'm just going to skip over this. Res the chest foe. They lose their money. Continue on. No res there. Makes sense. See buy a vault. Imp it. Fine. And then they're clicking for cards. So, like, yeah, that's fine. Again, like, I don't really understand the Lu deck in general, which is nothing about, like, this player or this deck. Like, I feel like I just don't understand the archetype too much, because usually aggressive runner archetypes is something that I avoid. Because I usually like playing more like control style flexible runners. Okay, and we played the Purge. So this Purge would be 10 times better if we had an ice on Archives, right? Because next turn the runner's going to run Archives and get a counter with Knob. But it's a very high value Purge, but the Purge, again, 10 times better if we had an ice on Archives. So they run Archives, they get their Knob counter, and do things we don't really care about. We do send a message, fine. So here we probably want to get this Pharos on a remote, and we want to advance these Akets. I feel like most players feel like they want to draw here, but we have lots of stuff that we actually need to do. So get this outermost Aket to 3 counters is one of them. Get this innermost Aket to 2 counters is another one. Because if we get this one to 3, we can use this Aket to advance the next one so that they both get encountered at 3. So this turn I'd probably go Treeline Archives, advance the outermost Aket twice. Pharos Remote is fine. We don't have... Like, we need to draw more support before we actually start doing stuff in this remote. Given the hand that we have right now, we're not going to jam this send a message. So putting the Pharos on the remote is not that high of a priority. So I just let that sit there. I just let this sit in hand. Again, we want to draw before we do anything else on our turn. We're probably going to play the hedge fund here. Oh, we put an ice in Archives. Great. It was Sadaka. Not what we want. We want an ice that will stick around. But a face down ice is a face down ice. So we'll take it. But yeah, definitely want something that sticks around. And again, about the draw, like, it feels minor, but this is a very major part about BTL Glacier in general. We don't need to draw. There's lots of things we need to do right now in like advance the Aket. So we're actually, this is happening right now. We're running R&D. If this Aket was on 3 advancements, our board would be so much better right now. But right now, we res these 2 Akets, and it's going to cost the runner $1 with Cleaver to break each of them. If this was advanced, it costs Cleaver 5, and we also get to fire the outermost sub. Night and day difference. So, super feels bad res here, but we'll res because it costs the money. Like, resing is not wrong, but really, really, really want this to be 3 advancements. Lost a wall-to-wall. That sucks a lot. We would love that to be in the remote. And we drew Winchester. That's fine. We don't need that. So, like, hedge fund, double advance, outermost Aket, I think is definitely what we want to do here. What happened? Oh, we tree lined. So, okay. And this is not something that's obvious here, but I have never used Treeline's expendability. Ever. Because Treeline is a 4 res, 4 strength, and gain a credit and the run piece of ice that can be advanced for +1 strength, is just a great card. Is just a great piece of ice. So the expendability, in my mind, is a waste, considering that we're actually losing a piece of ice for it. Manually advancing the Aket is just better. Also, you want to advance the outermost Aket before the inner one, because the outer one can advance the inner one. So, like, I think it's perfectly fine here to not even play the hedge fund and just go advance, outermost Aket, advance, innermost Aket. Really, really sets up R&D. There's arguments to, like, treeline the Theros. But again, like, the ice itself, I think is just better, because we can just spend clicks and credits to advance the Theros. We're in no rush. And then also single advancing the Theros. We want to single advance the Message Chessfoe. Right? The Message Chessfoe has no advancements. If HQ gets run, we want to have a counter on there. Oh, okay. So this is very aggressive from the runner. I definitely think it's wrong. But that's great for us, right? Yeah, Tranquilizer on the Message Chessfoe is very, very aggressive. It tells us there's an intention to run HQ, but like I'm fine to pay 5 and res this again, I think. Depending on especially if it eats 3 of your credits and you have to deal with it. But right now there's no advancement on it, so it's not going to eat your money. Catching up on chat. Just realized you're not at PAX this weekend. No, I have work I need to do. I have finals coming up, and I've been traveling a lot. So, I mean, I spend most of my day earlier before streaming studying, and there's a lot of studying to be done. That was one question I wanted to ask. Treeline expendable use. Glad you got to your frequency of use. Or lack thereof. Yeah, I've never ever used it to expend. It's such a good piece of ice. In fact, it's such a good piece of ice that in early parts of the BTL, there was no Pharos. And I only used Treeline. Like, Treeline was the Pharos. Because if you think about the money, like, $4 to res Treeline, if you triple advance Treeline goes to 7 strength. A triple advanced Pharos is 10 strength, which is a 3 strength difference in exchange for a 3 res cost difference. But Treeline has the flexibility of you can res it early. Pharos doesn't have that flexibility, but it has 2 extra subroutines. So I think Treeline and Pharos, very comparable. And in earlier versions of the deck, there was just no Pharos. And I just played the deck the same way. It was the same deck, but no Pharos. And Treeline did what Pharos did. But eventually, like, the deck went up to 49 cards, and I started playing the deck a lot slower than before, and because I played the deck a lot slower, I drew less cards. And because I drew less cards, Pharos got a lot better, because having one really good ice is like, essentially Pharos was equivalent to 2 tree lines, or maybe like a tree line and a half, but Pharos only costs you 1 card. So if you're playing slower, it's better to just have that big ice. I think other courts will have more consideration about Treeline's ability. Glacier. I was so wrong about Treeline when it was revealed. I initially thought it was Cheeks. I mean, Treeline is also more susceptible to Botulus and Boomerang somewhat. Yeah. There's like definitely trade-offs. Okay, but yeah. Tranquilizer HQ, very aggressive. Very, very aggressive. So we're gonna run HQ. That's fine. Breaking in. So I wouldn't res here because we don't have an advancement counter on here. So you lost a lot of value because this is going to get de-resed at the start of the turn because of Tranquilizer, right? So like you're essentially paying 5 to make the runner deal with the subs, which might be worth it. I guess in this case it forces them to simulchip, so I guess that is worth it. And we have the money, so. Yeah, I don't hate the res, actually, but it would have been 10 times better had there been an advancement token on here. What do we do? Oh, we just fire. Beautiful. Run Archives. Again, we want this to be a tree line. Or a Winchester. Like, imagine if this was Winchester. Trace 4 for trash program, trace 3 for trash hardware. Amazing. Sadaka, not going to do you too much. Actually, not going to do you anything at all. We don't actually want to res this. Like this is not. These are not 2 abilities that we want right now. But let's see what we get. Obviously, I don't see the cards. Oh, the other thing you can do with Sadaka, and it happened here, is where you like have Spin Doctor in hand and you use Sadaka to throw an agenda out. And putting Sadaka on Archives is super unfortunate because we can't make that play. Okay, so the Winchester goes on Archives. Very good. Spin Doctor goes in the remote. We're probably advancing the Mesta Chessflow here. Nice. Very nice. Great res. Okay, we're in a great spot here. Again, there's been a couple things that could have been a little bit more efficient. The runner, we could be in an even better spot. But we're in a great spot. The score is 0-0. Our ice is rezzed. HQ is looking a little weird. But we can figure it out. Okay, we're going to res spin. Probably shuffle back 2 Biovaults. NGO from Biovault. That's fine. Yeah, again, like I'm not too concerned about money. Money will come. Like there's another Gov sub. This Subliminal should come back to us. We have 2 more hedge funds, 2 more wall-to-walls. Money will come. And 2 more NGO friends, obviously. Re-advance, take 2 credits. Beautiful. It's really good, actually, that our corp player did not rush this wall-to-wall in the remote. Excellent restraint. I based off of the way that we've been playing, I would have expected them to do that. But that's great restraint. Like, let's just hold on to this, get the Pharos to 3 advancements, get another ice on top, hopefully play an econ operation, and then put the wall-to-wall in there. We're tranking the Winchester. Okay, so this is extremely aggressive, because now we can just re-res this Mesta Chessflow. Yeah, this is very unnecessary from the runner, I think. Great. I would use it here. They have 4 credits. Like, the worst thing that we don't want, I guess, is we would want to, like, they're going to lose 3 credits, go to 1, and then the subroutine fires, and then they lose 1 credit. So we kind of feel a little sad that way, but remember, putting the advancement on Mesta Chessflow is equivalent to clicking for a credit. And we're at 0 right now, so next turn we're going to be clicking for credits. So spend the counter. If it makes them lose 1 credit, worth it. Ooh, and we paid money to break. Like, we just got really, really, really punished by not using the Mess and Chessfoe. Yeah, we got super punished for not using the Mess and Chessfoe. Wall to wall, it's gonna get hit. That's fine. But yeah, so super punished for not using the Mess and Chessfoe. Just click for 3 here. We're attacking HQ again. This is great. Use the Mess and Chessfoe counter this time so that we can't... Like, because Audrey's going to break 2 subs anyways. Very good. And we're just going to be clicking for money. So, again, use the Mess and Chessfoe. If it costs them money, great. Lost by about. That sucks. But that's okay. It's costing the runner quite a bit of resources to make these runs. So this is fine. Okay, so now we're in the territory of we might just throw out this HQ ice and go for something else. Let's see what we draw. Ooh, okay. This is a problem. Purge seems great here. Yeah, Purge seems wonderful. And then, but like, we don't have $4 to res this Winchester that we haven't been resing. So, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. But I think we do need to Purge. So we go for it. Beautiful. Draw, labor rights. Okay, we're playing our labor rights. That's really good. Where's the third one? If there is a third one. We don't know. It's fine. And we get our subliminal back. That's beautiful. And we drew an NGO front. Oh, that's so good. Okay, so subliminal install double advance NGO. Beautiful. That's exactly what we wanted. Res the Winchester. Beautiful. It's firing. Ooh, that's really good. So we have to... So we just, like, ate the runner's money. That's so good for us. Yeah, that was value. That's so good for us. Great. Purge again. Discard... Border control, I think? Border control on the uttermost of the remote's pretty good. So I think we discard... We could discard Clearinghouse. Could discard Whoredom. But Whoredom's good against the Buzzsaw. So we probably discard the Aket, actually, because we don't have enough time. Like, we probably don't want to spend the time advancing this. Whoredom and Border Control will do. So, yeah, we just, like, Purge and discard the Aket. Nice. Nice. Beautiful. We're poking the remote. This is fine. No reason to res the NGO. Yeah, no reason to res the NGO here. We don't want to show the Pharaohs, right? So let's just have them run in, make them lose $3 off the Mess to Chessfoe. They actually only have 1 Botulus counter, so they have to Botulus the end of the run and lose the other $2 they have. And then we just pop the NGO, and that's great. We don't... Like, Pharaohs just gives them a tag and ends the run. We would much rather have them run through the Mess to Chessfoe here. And also, we don't want to commit our money to the Pharaohs res, because now the runner knows what's up. Lots of value in that. And then the Trojan horse would have been cute. So now we're broke again. Yikes. So if we had money and we didn't res the Pharaohs, we could have gone... We would have been at 9 credits. No, we would have been at 8 credits right now. Which means we can go border control on the remote. Credit. But now we can't really do that. I guess we can go credit, border control, credit, but I want to be able to pay 4 and res this Winchester on HQ. Advance the Mess to Chessfoe was very good. Take 2 credits is very good. Discard the Trojan horse is fine. Yeah, I guess that's a perfectly fine line. Discarding the Trojan horse is sad, but that's probably what you gotta do. Nice draw. Play that. Hedge fund. Ooh, okay. I think I would have hedge funded here. That's tough. I don't hate the purge either. Yeah, no, I don't hate the purge actually, now that I think about it more. But I hate the discard. I think you pitch an agenda. Like, you just, like, play Subliminal and pitch the SDS. Yeah. Oh no, all 3 spins are gone. So we can't, that's like super risky. So I guess we play Subliminal and pitch Whoredom. Oh, I hate that too. Hate that too. That's a tough spot. I have to just go to sleep, but would be interested to hear thoughts on what you can do in the Ahri matchup and against Shaper more generally. With Ahri in particular, is it game over once Hush comes down? Usually only 2 labor rights enlist. So have a good night if you've already left. But again, I know most of my viewers watch the video afterwards anyways. I will talk about Ahri at the end of this game. And then unless you're still here. If you're still here, say something and I will talk about Ahri now. Otherwise I'll continue and talk about it after the game. Yeah, Purge is fine, but the discard sucks. So yeah, I guess we throw out Whoredom. So we found the line. They're taking $4. We get the Subliminal back. Beautiful. We play the Subliminal, play the Hedge Fund, Border Control, and the remote. And then we probably want to put a second advancement on this at Ket. If we want to take the slow line. We expended the tree line for Pharos. Again, don't want to do that because Pharos is... We can just put 2 advancements on here. Like, if we think about what this actually saved us, we're spending a click and a credit to put 3 advancements, but only 2 of them matter, right? So we're spending a click and credit to put 2 advancements, and you can already spend a click and a credit to put 1 advancement. So really, you're throwing the tree line away in exchange for a click and a credit, which is not worth it. Clearinghouse in the remote is fine. I would like the border control on top before we do that, but this is fine. We're going to Trinket. Saw that coming. So now we're going to be forced to pay 7 again. Yeah, so this is an issue. Like, we can't do this. Like, you need to put border control on there. We want to put the tree line on there because we don't have the money to res Pharos over and over and over again. So this is actually a very bad res here. Because this is eating all our money, and we're not protecting a game-winning card. Like, Clearinghouse is a game-winning card, but it needs to be here for 3 turns. And that means we need to res Pharos 3 times. Don't have anywhere near the money to do that. Okay. Yeah, so don't like this because we can't res this. So I would much rather click up to 10 credits and play the Gov sub. I guess we're going to purge every 2 turns to keep the Tranquilizer down, but Simulchip is going to get it there anyways. Oh, we're going to Botchless on it. Even better. For us, really. So we're going to get in here. We're going to trash this Clearinghouse. And now, like, so 2 turns ago, before we put the Clearinghouse on the remote, I think the Corp was winning this game. We were in a great spot. Now, we're broke, and we need to click back up to 10. Now it's a little bit more uncertain. But it's going to be quite the grind. So, play that. I wouldn't have purged here. So here you just click for 3. There's no need to purge, because what are we purging? Right? I guess we just don't want this Pharos to get derezzed, but this is a battle that is costing us way too much. We can't keep this up. So we just have to click for money and let the Pharos go. This purge is costing us way too much. Before, purging was good because we're protecting HQ, but now we've shifted our Botulus away from HQ. So our centrals are so safe right now, we can just sit and click for credits. We're running the remote. So we don't get subliminal, fine. Oh, and we're doing the strike fine thing. Fine. But we've also lost all our simul chips. So we don't have a buzzsaw. Okay. That's good. Rhyme is funny. Doesn't do us anything. Click for 3. Yeah, so like our corp here is really trying to keep this Pharos. Because we've used all our simul chips, maybe this might actually work out in the long run. But I would have given up on it because purging is costing us too much. Nice draw on the NGO front. So I assume we're purging here again. We had to discard an agenda. That sucks. You could discard the hedge fund here. Because we're going to play the Gov sub, go to 16. What do we need our money for? All our ice is rezzed. Again, would love to have a couple tree lines to put on the remote. That's a suspicious install. Would have installed the above the law. Because we kind of got to go. There's only 9 cards left. Right, unless we're going for the clearinghouse kill, but I don't think we can do that. So maybe like try to score an SDS and shoot this Botulus is probably what I would go for, or shoot this Botulus, one of the Botulus. But we want to like, yeah, we might. I think I would jam an SDS here actually, and just shoot the Mesna Chesvo Botulus. HQ is kind of ripe, but we're not running HQ because we've shifted all our breaking ability onto the remote. We need to be super careful about the cards left in our deck. Purging again, we're trying to keep the Pharos around. See, like, okay, we actually have enough money now that we don't need to purge. Like, we can just res this Pharos and keep our turns. But I guess like the runner has a bunch of money, but they don't actually have a Kogate breaker, so they haven't actually shown us what they're doing with this money. I guess they can run archives and get an Audrey counter, but we have a border control here, so they have to break the Mesna Chesvo twice. So you should still be able to win this game. We could buffer drive for Buzzsaw, I guess. Great. Put more ice on the remote. Subliminal, tree line remote, advance the tree line, above the law on the remote. We can't play 2 subliminals in one turn. We figured that out. We're gonna tree line the Pharos. Fine. Yeah, that's actually a fine use of tree line here. But like, we have so much money that we can probably just install both and use both of them. It's fine. Okay. We're gonna lose this Pharos finally. Yeah, like this is a battle we didn't need to fight. So we could have saved like 4 turns from purging here. We should still win though, right? Just jam this SDS. Good. Good. $16 to break, that's what we like to see. And then we yeah, I think we can res this. Because they have Botulus counters. Oh, no, I guess we can't res this, because they could just take tags. So you can't res this. Do border control here? No. Just let him have it. Great. Clearinghouse is a great draw, actually. Clearinghouse is an amazing draw. So now we can go advance the Mesna Chesvo, install Hoard'em on the remote, install Clearinghouse. We're purging. So okay, yeah, like purging doesn't do anything. right? What does purging do for us? Catching up on chat. Lost Geek played Glacier BTL with RPC to 4th Italian Nats. What do you think about the card? If it's my list with RPC, then RPC is not good. I talked about it a little earlier in my stream, but yeah, RPC is a good finisher card, but you should have won the game before you got to game point in this deck. Wake Up Call is really good versus mulch type runners in these end game scenarios. I guess it's not needed. I don't think it's needed. I think we're like the corp has made a lot of I think I would have made a lot of different plays that I think would have resulted in the corp being a lot more ahead or the runner being a lot more behind throughout this game. But despite all of that, I actually think the corp's in a great spot here. So despite a lot of misplays, the corp is in a great spot here. Like we don't need deck changes. Couldn't they just install the new Pharos and then treeline it? Yeah. But also we can just use both. Yeah, get this Hortum on the remote. Hortum's great. Costs us $4. Yeah. So I was saying like purging doesn't do us anything here. We can just give up on this Pharos. And this Messna Chestfoe is fine. Like, there's 2 Winchesters on HQ. They're not running HQ. So we've wasted a lot of turns purging. Okay. So Revolver's giving us very limited HQ runs. Which is fine. And their access odds are not good here. But let's see if they hit one. They don't. Beautiful. Oh, we even gave away a little information with the oof. Oh, and we top deck the agenda. Okay, so there's only 3 cards left. We gotta get this clearinghouse rolling. That is good. I think I would have put the Hortum on top. Maybe? Maybe not. It's fine. Let's see what happens. I think this is fine. It requires a little bit of math to figure out if we put the Hortum on top. You definitely want to advance this Messna Chestfoe, though. So I think it's install Clearinghouse, advance it, advance the Messna Chestfoe. But, like, cards in R&D is going to be an issue. We're running again. And tracing through, that's what we like to see. Oh, and we also wanted to advance this Messna Chestfoe. Yeah, we gotta, like, the fact that we were drawing cards throughout this game has cost us dearly here. Because we would love to have a bit more time to re-advance these Messna Chestfoes. But we're running out of time because we've been drawing. Okay. And we access wall-to-wall from HQ. Nice. What is happening? Okay. Biovault's great. I just installed double advance this Biovault. Yeah, there's 2 cards left, but we've shown like we've lost our whole board. So like we really need to this is I'm so happy this situation came up. Because I think I know the result of this game, and we just install double advances Biovault. The runner has lost their whole board. Where can they run? Like if we look at this board right now, where are the agendas? The agendas are in HQ, are in R&D, and we need the remote to hold because this is how we win the game, right? So we don't care about archives, but we care about HQ, R&D, and the remote. Which of those 3 servers can the runner get into? There's only one, which is HQ, right? But they have to pay 3 through the Winchester, and I guess they can't let a program trash. So they have to... Oh, they can, actually. So they have to pay 3 through the Winchester and then 3 through the second Winchester, and then they're going to lose like their Buzzsaw, so now they need to break with Botulus, or the other way around. So this is strictly a money problem. The other one, R&D in the remote, that's a tools issue. They don't have the tools to get in. This HQ is a money thing, and we can tax their money by making them run it over and over and over again. So install double advanced Biovault, locks them out. Next turn, triple advance the clearinghouse. And this game is on lock. We've won the game. I think we go for the clearinghouse, and I think we YOLO into HQ and we steal an agenda here. Yeah, it looks like that's what happened, because I had a little bit of a spoiler that the runner wins this game. So I imagine we hit this 3 and 5 and we win. So yeah, like we had the game. I could have broken the Botulus. How? The Botulus had a counter on it. Yeah, so it came down to the access. Yeah, so yeah, it came down to the access, but it didn't have to come down to the access. Like if we went and installed double advanced Biovault, we would have made this exact same run, and we would start the turn at 20 credits after playing the Strike Fund and whatever. We would come all the way through, and we would access on 8. If we pop Biovault here, can we run back? No. Right? Can we run back next turn? Also no. Because it costs us 4 for the trash program sub on Winchester, 3 to break, and 3 to break the Winchester again. And we can probably put an advancement on the Message Chespo as well. So install double advanced Biovault would have completely locked the game down. Okay, that's the game. Luckily, the clearinghouse only needs to beat at 5 to kill. Delaying by not advanced twice here means an extra turn. Yeah. It does mean an extra turn, but like an extra turn where we're completely safe, and it just completely locks out the game. So yeah, I honestly like this player is, as I said, is like a relatively new player, and they haven't been playing for too long. And they've picked up a deck that's really hard and really technical to play. And there was a couple times where they found the right lines, which is super impressive. Obviously it's really hard to get it perfect. I think we spent a lot of turns purging where we didn't need to. We gave the runner a couple Knobcurie runs on archives, when we didn't need to. And I think there's a couple like ice placement and ice advancement, board advancement decisions that could have been like slightly better. For example, like this Aket getting to 3 would have gone a long way. But yeah, like my point is like, despite all of that, we still had a game-winning line on the last turn, which really shows the resiliency of this deck, but also that this matchup is a little insightful about the matchup as well. With that said, like I think the Lu took a lot of aggressive lines that I felt was unnecessary. I think tranking the HQ ice was a time where the runner decided to attack HQ, which I think was a little committal. But again, like I'm saying all this, I'm very familiar with the BTL. I'm not very familiar with the Lu. So I think you can make very real arguments that the Lu needs to attack, because if they don't, then they're not going to win the long game. I also think you can make arguments the other way, where you can sit on Botulus, sit on Simulchip, sit on Tranquilizer, and don't commit your pieces anywhere, and wait for the Corp to make a move. But that's a very difficult analysis to do, because if you decide on one and you're wrong, then you're going to lose the game. You're going to get blown out. If you decide to like sit on your pieces and then realize your pieces are not good enough. That's a very risky call to make. This is a very interesting game to break down. Yeah, it was. I'm so happy. Prinny, thank you, if I'm saying your name right. Thank you so much for sending this to me. Yeah, this was really, really good. I've been intending to do like a BTL stream, and this was such a good game to break down because there's so much happened to this game. So yeah, thank you for sending it in. With that said, like, I'm conscious about opening floodgates, but if anybody wants to send replays for me to look at, like, that's something I've always been down to do. It doesn't have to be a BTL deck. It doesn't have to be my deck. Like, if you have an interesting replay that you would like me to review, like, send it in. You can find me on Slack and on Discord, and I don't know if you can send it through a YouTube comment. I don't think you can. So find me on Slack or on Discord. Yeah, that's something I'm totally down to do. Again, no promises, because, like, I don't stream very often, and also if 10 people send me games, I'm obviously not going to have time to, like, do all of that. But, you know, send it in. I'm happy to entertain that idea. Ice placement is a super underappreciated skill. Glad to see you breaking it down like this. Thanks. Hey, thank you. I'm really glad that you find this helpful. Yeah, and as I said, like, I could have done this as a video, but doing it as a stream is always more fun. I know that most of my viewers are not live viewers because I don't stream consistently. But yeah, I definitely agree with what you said. Like, ice placement is a super underappreciated skill, and it's also a really important skill. And it's something that, like, Glacier really needs. Like, it really shines through Glacier. Okay, I'm thinking I'm gonna play a game or two. It's 5:16. I have dinner in like an hour, so I have another hour. And then those of you who are like, yeah, you're playing BTL, so you have time for one game. Maybe. That might be true. BTL does have a time issue. Like, this was one thing when I was practicing the deck, was you need to get used to the lines, and you need to make your decisions quickly, because in a tournament setting, it's really important that you make your decisions quickly, because I know I'm playing a slow deck. Okay. We got Dave, who's playing Sable. You were going to do the Ari talk before the game. Oh, shoot. Yeah, okay, I'll talk about Ari. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, I'm going to delay. I'll talk about it after. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, I'll do it after the game. I won't forget about it. Hopefully. Gonna hop off now. Thanks for streaming. We'll catch the rest later. Awesome. Thanks for hanging out, Jai. See you around. So, okay. Let's just jump in. We're gonna keep this hand. This is Sable. I've talked about this earlier, but this is Crim. Crim is a very proactive runner in general. So we just want to shut off their cards. So this is a great hand to shut off their cards. Now, the one thing about Crim, though, is if you put Messna Chessfoe on HQ turn 1 and they run HQ, you don't really want to res it. So if we want to take the really slow game plan option, we actually put the Messna Chessfoe on HQ, and I think I'm going to do that because we actually have a lot of juicy cards in HQ. So I kept the hand, fully intending to go Winchester HQ, Aket R&D, advance Aket. But with the Messna Chessfoe draw, we're going to put the Messna Chessfoe on HQ. And it's a 50-50 which one you advance. I'll advance the Messna Chessfoe. Some people will run the advanced card, and some people will run the not advanced card. And you would like them to run the Messna Chessfoe. So if you think they're going to run the advanced card, advance the Messna Chessfoe. If you think they're going to run the other card, then advance the Aket. They're bravado into this. They have $6. Mwah. Perfect. This is really good. They're going to lose $6, like full Messna Chessfoe value. Get out of here. Amazing. Yeah, and to explain like the ice placement a little bit more, like we've got NGO, Send a Message, and Spin, all very high value cards. So we don't want to get like, we don't want to get an early Winchester HQ exploited in case they decide to poke HQ a bunch before installing programs or hardware. Trash Clearinghouse. That's really good for us. Clearinghouse is not something that we are concerned about until way later in the game. And the fact that they're paying 3, which is hurting their setup, is great. So here we just go... We can take things super slow, or we could get the NGO friend out there. I think I'm going to decide to take the super slow line, which is advance, credit. We could go tree line archives, but I'm going to take a credit. So there's a couple considerations that went into that. We do want to block dirty laundry, right? But this Winchester is definitely going on HQ, and the Winchester's definitely going on HQ because A, we want Winchesters on HQ, and B, we don't want to get diversioned off. We don't want to get like boomerang diversioned with a single ice there. We always want unknown ice on our servers if we can. And the tree line might go on archives, but also it might we might need it for a remote. So if we consider the possibilities of what we might be drawing, there is a high chance we'll draw ice, but in case we don't, we might need the tree line to make a remote play. Like if we just start drawing like absolute garbage, we might need the tree line for a remote and we might not be able to ice archives. And the reason that is influencing my play, because you can't always play around drawing absolutely garbage, but in this case I am, because I feel like we're really ahead. But we drew border control. Great draw. So let's put the tree line on archives. We want to block dirty laundry. Also, there's Sable. I don't think we're in a rush to advance this Aket again, so I think we just install the NGO and advance it once. And you might say, like, we're not getting full value out of this NGO, but really the first advancement is where the value is. The second advancement only gets us $1 extra. And we can live without that. Because I want to be able to res the tree line, in case we do actually want a dirty laundry archives. Although, 99 times out of 100, this is a good enough... Like, ice archives is good enough. Like, we started that turn with $2. Oh, actually, that my argument there just actually makes no sense. I should have just went install tree line archives, advanced tree line, take $1, when we would have been at 4. So, actually, install advanced NGO is actually just wrong. Because we could have just gotten to 4 without the NGO. Don't mind me. Winchester NGO, advanced NGO. Yeah, that's a line. I'm not too concerned about this HQ run just yet, because they don't have a ton of money. And looks like we didn't get punished on the NGO install, so that's good. We even drew the Gov sub, which is amazing. Let's get the Aket 3. Let's get the Winchester on HQ, and let's advance the NGO for that extra $1. Not in a rush to advance the tree line, because it's not going anywhere. So we'll just, next turn we're probably going to go credit, government subsidy. And by that I mean advanced tree line credit, government subsidy. And we're going to sit. And we're going to wait. Also, we have Spin Doctor. So, like, if we draw, like, absolute garbage, Spin Doctor should save us. We are playing... So, it was installed last turn, but we're playing against a Hermes deck. Depending on their money situation, you might just be able to lock the Hermes deck out of Centrals and win off Clearinghouse. And just have agendas being scored or stolen not being relevant at all. We'll see what happens. Because keep in mind they're also Crim. So the second a breaker hits the board, SDS is shooting that. Now, for those who might remember, I was only on one Clearinghouse until the day before Worlds, and then I cut a Whoredom for the second Clearinghouse. So up until the day before Worlds, I was playing 3 Whoredom, 2 Mest and Chessfoe, which meant that shooting a Code Gate Breaker was actually a very real way to win the game. But now, because we only have 4 code gates, you actually need to draw all your code gates in order to justify shooting the decoder over the fractor. Just an interesting note to make. So here we go. Oh. We gotta take the money, we go to advance, take $1, gov sub. We're in such a good spot here. Happy to sit. Tunnel vision, Pog, yes. But this, we're not concerned about this. Like, yeah, you can pay through my stuff. That's fine. Sadaka's a great draw. We might be on twinning. I don't know if we are, but Sadaka on R&D is where we want it. So now I'm going to look on my board and see, is there advancement tokens I need anywhere? And the answer is no. So I guess we can draw. Do we want to spin doctor? Not really. Because I guess we would shuffle the clearinghouse back, but the other card isn't that great. So we're going to draw click 1. Fine. So I think now we can spin doctor. And we can res draw 2. We go to 7 cards, and we can put the Sadaka on R&D and pitch the send a message and shuffle back, send a message, and clearinghouse. Subliminal we'll just hold on to. Mesna Chesfo is good to have. Mesna Chesfo is the best ice in the deck. Because it's just like Pharaohs obviously costs a lot of money, it's super taxing, but like Mesna Chesfo is just good no matter what stage of the game you're in. So drawing the other copy of Mesna Chesfo is amazing. So we probably are going to go and start building a remote soon. Get the Mesna Chesfo out there, get it advanced, have it on the inside. Again, we might be on inside job, so we want the big ice on the inside. With that said, we don't want to commit the Whoredom there yet, right? Because we want the Whoredom on the outside. So I'm just going to slowly build a remote and don't commit ice where I don't want to. Hopefully we draw a wall-to-wall. That'd be ideal. 5 strength ice, really good against tunnel dogs. Oh, yeah, hey. Ooh, okay, whoa. Interesting, that's really aggressive. Okay, so Nuka, Boomerang, inside job. That's fine. So we just let this go? Yeah, we just let this go. Okay, so watch this, right? So we don't res this. I wonder if anybody who's been paying attention, if anybody who's been here for the last 2 hours, there's a play I'm about to make, and I would love to see if anybody can guess what that is. You have like 20 seconds to make that guess before I do it. Hell yeah. Fa's paying attention. And Fa wasn't even here the whole time. So proud. I'm so proud. It's Trash the Boomerang. Hell yeah. Oh, and we drew the wall-to-wall too. We're so good. So we don't want to overwrite the Aket, because Aket's really good, right? But we have the border control in hand. So we want to put the border control on R&D. Because next time they run R&D, they're going to boomerang through the Aket, and we're going to pop the border control. And now they just lost the boomerang. If we didn't have border control in hand, I think you could argue to put like Mesna Chesfo on R&D and kill the Aket. And that's probably, I think you'd have to think about that one a little bit more. But like border control, beautiful. So we do that without thinking about it. I think we go like this, go like subliminal, install this in front of the spin, advance it. Icing the spin means we might get the subliminal back, and we've set ourselves perfectly for wall-to-wall in the remote next turn. Hopefully we draw another ice that's not this Whoredom, because we would love to put like a Tree Line or a Pharaohs on the remote before we put the Whoredom on top. Because especially we've already shown that we're on inside job. Don't care about the Spin Doctor pop just yet. We get the Subliminal, and we draw the tree line that we called to the top of the deck. The other thing you need to do about winning Netrunner games is just being able to call the cards that you draw. It's a very important skill. You just advance this. Yeah, very important skill to be able to draw the top card, to be able to call the top card of your deck. Sadaka discard spin was mentioned earlier. Yes, yeah. That's something. Board control R&D. Didn't we want the spin outside to fill with wall to wall? Didn't we want the spin outside to fill with wall to wall? Oh yeah. Look, we're saying we wanted to ice, not the Spin Doctor. Yes, but we basically guarantee a subliminal. What is this Archives run? Carpe Diem? So what is this Archives run doing for us? So thinking, this is a very funny story to tell. So this happened at Worlds, where Ranjidoge, playing 419, ran Archives in a very similar situation. And I was like, why are we running Archives here? Are we trying to like install Carmen at a discount? And the answer was he was playing Mining Accident 419 and I didn't know. So he couldn't play his Mining Accidents, and then like 3 turns later he discarded all of them. And I was so happy that I ended up rezzing. So maybe we're on Mining Accident, I guess. But I think we just res this. Because why not? Right? We're getting a click back. I guess that's what we're trying to do. I guess we'll res. Credit gamble. Yeah, I mean, we're going to res this eventually anyways, so why not? Yeah, it's a mark run, but like, you know, we could really get hurt on that run, you know? Okay. Wall to wall. We're in a great spot, so we can draw cards. That's a great draw. And we just want to get counters on things. Where do we want counters? I like putting second counters on Messna Chessfoes because we have end the run effects like Biovault. So getting a second counter on this Messna Chessfoe I think is very valuable. So we're going to do that. You also want to advance your tree lines because we don't want them to be able to farm Kurupira counters for cheap. So getting tree line to like 6, 7, 8 strength, very important as well. This turn here, though, is a very straightforward Biovault double advance. Doing excellently. Also, the Sadaka on R&D makes R&D so safe. Like, think about that, right? The Sadaka ability to see the top 3 cards, essentially ensuring that we're not going to lose an agenda unless we shuffle and get unlucky. So good. Okay, and we even have twinning. Here we go. Oh, we're so set up. Like, our answers are showing up. We even got the Winchester on HQ. I'm going to start advancing this Archives tree line so we can't farm Kurupira counters. And I think we just go Ice HQ and chill. I think there's a good argument for putting the Hortum on the remote there. Again, it caps the remote. It doesn't really. But it's like, it is a soft cap on the remote. And we don't really want that. So we won't do it. Pharos is good, I guess. But, okay, so we need to be a little bit careful here. I don't know if I will ever get to any server this game. We need to be a little bit careful here because we do have Hermes. So if we commit to a Pharos, it's going to be super expensive. but we can do it because we have money and we're ahead. So let's do it. We want to put the Biobelt in the remote because it's safer there. And we want to advance the Pharaohs the first time because we get an ID trigger, and then the second and the third time we'll probably use wall-to-wall. Ideally, we find a clearinghouse, and we can just kill them with clearinghouse, and we don't have to try to score agendas. But that might not happen. Pinhole's fine. We're going to have to eat those up anyways. We have to pay a fortune to get through this. Wait, how are they getting through this? Yeah, tunnel vision's only on the mark. Looks to be very uphill for the runner already. Yeah, they just been to Doof. Always feel good when they give up on them. Yep. Zabdaka's breakable with the dogs. That's true. That's true. That's true. But it's like what, 4 credits? Fine. But that's true. That's a concern. Oh, okay. And the Kiropir has come down. Now we can push this SDS, right? We haven't been pushing this SDS because we haven't had a target in terms of a program to trash, and we haven't had a need in terms of being flooded to score agendas. But now there's a Kurupira. And we're running archives to... Oh, that's beautiful. That's really good for us. Because now we're going to be broke. Which means I can just jam the SDS this turn. Right? Right. So... let's go gain a credit. Let's place an advancement counter. And I guess we also don't care about the Hermes bounce because we don't have a single ice on any server that can be bounced. So let's put a second advancement on the tree line. Yeah. And then we pick it up and we can just go ahead and jam this. We have 1 credit. I have enough to res the whole server if we want. But the tree line and the Mess and Chesvo should do. Ah, okay, fair enough. Yeah. And this is, it's not like, you know, some people concede prematurely, I feel, on JNet. This is not one of those cases. We've lost this game already. Because like, you can't steal this SDS. SDS shoots the Kurapira, and now you can only run your mark with tunnel vision, and it's going to be so rough. The Hermes bounce isn't really going to get you anything. I'm going to just windmill agendas out of this remote, and we can't do much. So like, this is a fully justified concede. And the score is 0-0. I mean, the score is 3-0 because you could like wait for me to score the SDS because maybe this isn't SDS. But if this isn't SDS, this is a very aggressive push for whatever this is. I can give up Shesby's, but I'm not getting into steal SDS, so I'm not going to lose the one I want. Yeah. Alrighty. Solid first game. Okay, I have time for one more, so I think I'm gonna do it. Yeah. I think that was like my plan today, was to do the replay review and then play 2 games, so I think we're completely on track for that. I'm gonna... Oh, thoughts on matchup versus Ari. Okay, I'm gonna do the thoughts on matchups versus Ari right now. I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and I will come back. So I will be right back. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for reminding me. Because I did forget. Okay, let's talk about the matchup versus Ari. So let's pull up the deck list, and we'll just talk from here. So, remember what I said about earlier versions of this deck not playing Pharaohs. And that was because I think I also played Rashidas at some point. Not for very long, so I don't know if I played Rashidas in the version that didn't play Pharaohs. But the point of bringing that up was the deck, I used to play the deck faster, and now I think the optimal way of playing the deck is playing very slow. Because as I said, BTL can advance your board state in a very meaningful way without having to draw new cards. So if you're in a good spot, you have money, or if you don't have money, you can just click for money. And if you do have money, you can advance your tree line. You can advance your Aket. Advancing tree line is like kind of a waste of time. But like advance your Aket, advance your Pharaohs, right? Get your counter or two on your Mesa Chesfo. You can advance your board without drawing new cards, which meant that Pharaohs became much better if you view the deck that way, because you can do a lot more with less cards. And Pharaohs becomes like a really good ice with such a game plan, because you're doing that one piece of ice is doing a lot. Now, against Hush, that becomes really bad. Okay? Because what Arissana essentially is able to do, if you think about Arissana as a deck, right? Arissana has Trojans, and the power of the Trojans is an ability to break into one server really, really well. So we have Slap Vandal, we have Cuban, we have, and most importantly, Hush. So whenever we want to get through a server with Pharaohs, we can Hush it. If there's a big tree line, we can Hush that. So like against Arissana, advancing your tree lines 3 times is important, because your tree line goes past 6 strength. So it goes to 7 strength, which means we can't Slap Vandal it. So now we have to figure out a solution. But if we have to invest 3 clicks and 1 credit to get our tree line to 7 strength, the runner just deals with that with a single Hush install. That's too good. It's too good. A lot of Arissanas, especially, are playing 2 Hush. But honestly, I think 1 Hush is good enough. 1 Hush played by an Arissana who's like very judicious with their use of resources should run over this deck, if this deck is played the same way that we're playing it in every other matchup, which is play slow, play setup. Arissana is going to like pick apart your R&D and conduit you, or they're going to pick apart your remote and like Hush your tree line wherever, or you Hush your tree line and Hush your Pharaohs wherever it is. Similar to what I said before, Mesa Chesfo is your best ice in the deck, because Mesa Chesfo, like, you could Hush Mesa Chesfo, but it's still got 2 pretty good subs, and it's a medium, like, it doesn't cost you 7 to res like Pharaohs. Okay, so I've explained like the weaknesses. Your board takes a long time to set up, right? Pharaohs takes a long time to set up. Treeline takes a long time to set up if you're trying to set up properly. And by that time, most Arissanas will be able to get their Hush online, get their Slap Vandals, make the runs that they need to run. So it's a very, very different game when you play against Arissana. What you need to do is essentially you need to take advantage of the fact that you have a lot of ice in your deck in terms of ice count. And what Arissana is good at is breaking individual ice. They can Hush, they can Slap Battle. But they're not good at getting through multiple ice. Because every piece of ice, they need a solution. A typical runner installs a Decoder, a Fractor, and a Killer. And then those 3 cards can break all the subtypes. Arissana doesn't do that. They can, but it takes a long time for them to get to that stage. What they do is they break the ice one by one, and they have tricks that break the ice. So what we need to do is take advantage of the fact that we have a high ice count and stack ice on a remote. Now, that will only do the trick for so long. Because as I said, Arissana still plays a decoder, a killer, and a fractor. So eventually they're going to get money, and they're going to be able to have breakers, and maybe they play turbine as well. So eventually they're going to be able to break the ice. So we can't have the game go long. So against Arissana, what we need to do is we need to mulligan really aggressively for wall-to-wall. Because wall-to-wall is our only card acceleration in this deck. We don't have Rashida's. This deck is not supposed to play this way, but against Arissana, this is what you have to do. So you get wall-to-wall, and you get a piece of ice in front of it. You basically put every ice that you draw in front of this wall-to-wall. And you every turn you draw a card with wall-to-wall, and you advance your ice on the remote. Maybe you put one ice on HQ. Maybe. You probably don't put one ice. Well, you probably do put one ice on R&D, or maybe you just hold an ice in your hand for R&D in case they go for conduit. That's something we need to keep in mind. But the general game plan is we're going to mulligan super hard for wall-to-wall, draw and accelerate our ice count that is on the board with wall-to-wall. So get a lot of ice on the board, get a lot of ice on the remote, and get a clearinghouse in there and kill the Arissana ASAP. Because again, if the game goes long, we're going to lose. So we have to win the game soon, and we have to do it through clearinghouse. If you get a hand that has wall-to-wall and clearinghouse, that's ideal, because, you know, finding the wall-to-wall is the most important part, but you do actually need to find a clearinghouse too. So, you know, if there's a clearinghouse in hand, maybe you put an ice on HQ to protect the clearinghouse from being trashed. And yeah, you just get like 3-4 ice on a remote, get meaningful advancement counters on those ice, depending on what ice it is, and jam your clearinghouse and kill them. And you just have to go super fast and go for that plan. So at Worlds, I did beat an Arissana. In round 2 of Swiss, I got paired against Arissana, and I mean, they were playing Ace on the other side, but that, you know, we're talking about the Arissana, and I had to, like, I knew that this was a matchup that was really bad going in, and I found a hand that had wall-to-wall and clearinghouse, and so, like, I, like, went about this game plan where we stacked a bunch of ice on R&D on the remote and didn't worry too much about R&D or HQ. And I think we got a clearinghouse kill by like turn 7 or turn 8. Yeah, trigger the wall-to-wall every turn, advance your board position, and get the clearinghouse in there. That's the game plan. In that game, I was also super lucky that they didn't draw like any money. So they had an okay start, but then like they just got program flooded, and that just happens when you play Arissana. I've been playing Arissana a bit the last week, and the lesson that I've learned is Arissana is not as good as Hoshiko, at all, because it's like you're so draw dependent, and you're actually so slow if you don't find your card draw cards. Whereas like Hoshiko can figure things out because you have natural card draw and you just have value in your ID, and also your cards are generally better. Whereas Arissana really relies on the setting up of an engine. Arissana is only good once like some amount of engine is set up, and there's no card draw inherent in the ID that's helping you. So you have like these cards that are clunky. You have so many clunky cards in your deck that only like it. You can set up this engine that really sings, but getting there is so draw dependent that it's just like an element of variance that I feel just doesn't exist in Hoshiko. Yeah, so sometimes when you play Arissana, that'll just happen, and I think that's just how you beat Arissana is. If it looks like they're having a bad draw, go at them. Like, you know, go fast, and don't let them get to that state that they want to be in. The hope is to not bleed enough agendas out of centrals, especially to conduit. Yeah, I mean, there's only 7 agendas in the deck, right? They need to find 3 out of 7 of those agendas. Now, you're not just gonna not ice R&D when they start conduiting you. And yeah, if they install conduit and if like they've got like Cubon and Slap Vandal, I understand that it's really, really, really hard to protect R&D against an Arissana who's starting to conduit you. So go fast and hope that you don't get there. Like, the conduit costs 4 to install. Like, are they going to invest 4 credits to install this conduit? If you draw enough ice, and again, we're a 49 card deck, and we have, what, 18 ice? That's pretty good. You should be able to find something to throw on R&D. Ari is frustrating in play, yeah, 100%. You get a god droppy 4th game and you're like, oh, maybe this is good, and then you continue to suffer. That's been my finding. Yeah, although I will say that, like, when I test decks, the times where I get the god draw, I still find myself finding flaws. And this is not just isolated to Arissana. Like, I still find myself identifying flaws that I dislike. Yeah, so yeah, that's the Arissana plan. Get your clearinghouse kill. Get it fast. Okay, one more game. One last game, and then I will call it there. There's a Victoria circuit opener that's happening next weekend that I will be going to. Haven't decided what I'm playing at all. There is a Vancouver circuit opener tomorrow, which I am not sure. Actually, let's see. Yeah, okay. So it looks like I'm not going to that. So I play intramural soccer at UBC, and my soccer team made, like, we're doing really well in playoffs. So tomorrow I actually have, like, semifinals, and then if we win, we play in finals right after. So unfortunately, I'm missing the Vancouver circuit opener for soccer tomorrow, but I won't miss the next weekend's one in Victoria. It's funny they call them circuit openers. Like, at this point, what are we opening for? I don't know. I'm really bad at naming things. I have a lot of, like, deck building ideas and lots of decks that I feel like if I don't find a good name for them, I think twice about posting them. So there's been, like, a couple times where it's like, I have decks that I think people would be interested in seeing and that people would be interested if I posted, but I just don't have a good name for it, so I end up not posting it. Hope you get ran by Hoshiko. Complete the strategy set. Oh, true. Hey, yeah, if we run into Hoshiko, that'd be really cool. The CBI, I suspect. Yeah, we're opening for the CBI. I charge $1 a name. Hit me up. That's not that bad. Maybe I will hit you up. $1 a name. Love this logic. Hey, the name's really important. Although I will say that I don't know how many people pay attention to this, but in Always Be Running, there is this thing called badges, and you can collect badges for a lot of different things. And one of the badges is, if ABR will load. But also I can just say it without showing that it exists, because everybody else can go look at it. Oh, no, here it is. One of the badges is... Here we go. At the very bottom right, there is Netrunner DB Superstar, which is a user that has more than 5,000 reputation in Netrunner DB, and there's currently 6 users. And I've been, like, getting there. I'm at 43, 49. So I'm like, I really want to get that badge, which is just like, you know, a random internet point pat on the back. But yeah, I'm like, there's a badge at 5,000. Only 6 people have it, and I'm like, we're getting close. So I've been really wanting to post more decks just to get more internet points, and yeah. But again, if I don't find a good name, that'll hold me back. When we were juggling team names, I could tell I was running into a kindred spirit. When we were juggling team names, not sure what that's referring to. Yeah, love more explanation on that. Okay, we have Essa. This is a good one to show as well. So, Essa usually plays botchless, so you have to watch out for botchless. This hand is very symmetrical. Install res spin, hedge fund, ice HQ. Do we play this hand? It's kind of fine, honestly. Do we play this hand? Think we can go slower? I'm gonna play this. Is that weird? Oh, man. If we install our spin and don't get ice, we're gonna get... actually, it's not that bad because we have 2 spin doctors. No, we play this. Let's play this. What a draw. We're so good at this game. Let's just NGO front. Because if they run HQ and they get in, we would rather, like, we could have played double hedge fund, ice HQ, but then our hand would be double spin NGO, which means they probably get a trash. But if they get into HQ this way, then there's a 50-50 that they hit a hedge fund. And again, we're not too concerned about the extra NGO credit, and also this costs them a click to run if they want, so that's great for us. These early game clicks are very important because, yeah, these early game clicks are very, very important because Essa's trying to attack me. That's unfortunate. Wait a second. We don't want to do that. There's a time bomb, so we're gonna slow play these spin doctors. That's fine. Might get punished for it, but I think that's what we're doing. We're gonna slow play these spin doctors. Like, when the sabotage comes, we're gonna install the spin doctor, and then we're gonna sabotage some cards out of our hand, and then spin them back. Spin doctor is super key. We're not just gonna use them. Here we can mill... Ooh. That's an aggressive Begamot install. We might be able to Trojan Horse that. So I think we go like that in the top card of R&D. Lost a tree line. That sucks. That's kind of fine, though, because we have a Begamot on the board. That's good. Let's get the Spin Doctor, because we have an agenda in the bin now. No ice is really unlucky. But the third spin is really great. So I guess we just get more money. That's not great. That's not ideal. We want an ice on R&D here. Ah, your chase. I see. That makes a lot more sense. I could tell I was running into a Kindred Spirit. That makes a lot more sense. I just played against this runner. Skin of my teeth win with PD. Okay. Looks like we're nailing this Trojan Horse Begamot. Which is great. We didn't steal a send a message, which is also great. And this time bomb is going to go off next turn. Let's pop this NGO. It's really good that they're spending their time running here. Ooh. Do we let the spin get trashed? And next turn we go install res spin, and we can shuffle back spin and send a message? I think we just put the ice back. Wait, sorry. I'm not going to use it because they pay $2, which saves us $2 on this Trojan Horse. I was going to pop it for the 2 face downs, but this is fine. A cat's a great draw. Let's Install res spin doctor. That's good. So this is Guff Sub is a card we can throw away. Wall to Wall is a card we can throw away because we only need one copy. Let's put this on R&D and let's play the Trojan Horse. I need to boost this by 5 to trash the Begamot. I think we do it. The other thing we can do is like not boost it. We could boost it by 1. And we could just trash the fermenter and call it a day. I don't hate that too, actually. No, because then they can just pay 1 credit. How can we be cute here? If they spend 4 credits, I'll trash the fermenter. Yeah, we'll save a credit this way. Let's do it. I'll give them the option. There we go. Hit the Begamot. Yeah, if they spend 4 credits and they go to 0, then we can trash the fermenter and then they don't have money. Cool with that. Let's go these 2 cards and the top card of the deck, which is the Subliminal. Oh, we're so good. Oh my goodness. Okay. Running Hot? Fine. 2 ice? Fine. Oh, the Subliminal going away. So good. Oh, got him. Got him. Got him. Okay. Let's go. Okay. We're probably just clicking draw here. Again, we want to hold the spin. That's Subliminal, pure skill. Yeah, it is. That's all it is. It's just pure skill. We shuffle the spin back and the agenda. Give me an ice. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to draw, but we'll get an ice anyways, because pure skill, obviously. So I guess we actually set this up because we drew the ice. I drew click 1 because against any other matchup, we would have just went install Pharos, advance, install wall to wall, but we want to draw because we want to get cards in hand so we can control the sabotages. We do want to res here because we want this wall to wall. It's very important. They're going to spend a botchless counter, which means it's going to be safe for another 2 turns at least before we need to put another ice on top, which we will. And now this is just going to start drawing us cards. The way that the ESA matchup usually goes... Ooh, I need to advance this, I guess. Yeah. The way the ESA matchup usually goes is we start putting ice on archives, and we like house our agendas in there and win with Clearinghouse. This is a 51 card ESA. No, it's like a 56 card ESA, so that game plan might not be that good. That's an awkward draw. So if we draw again, we're going to have to play one of these cards. I don't want to do that. So we'll just advance this and take a credit, I think. I don't know what the Sadaka is doing for us. I don't know what the Sadaka is doing for us, so we're probably just gonna lose it to Sabotage. That's fine. We would love a Whoredom on Archives, or anything really. Time Bomb's fine. Like, we're gonna lose cards to Sabotage and then spin it back. The fact that we drew all 3 of our Spin Doctors is sick. Botchless on R&D is fine. We're gonna get this to 3 counters, and then a Ket's gonna start generating us value. We want to do that this turn. Hedge Fund's a good draw. Give me an ice. That's great. We want that for HQ because we don't want to get Chastushka, so let's do this, and ice HQ, and then we lose the wall to wall, but they take a tag. I don't think they're going to go for that, so we'll take the risk. I think it's correct for them to run through this Pharos and trash the wall to wall, but I think very few players will actually go and make that play. Are they going to run archives if we throw this send a message out? Maybe. Maybe. They don't. Okay, beautiful draw. Now we can put this on top of the Pharos. We could consider double Pharos. We could consider double Pharos. I think we do that. I think we do that. So let's draw. That's fine. Install advance. Time bomb's going to go to 3, and then next turn it's going to pop. So next turn we're going to put the spin doctor on the board, and we're going to throw the 2 send messages out to the sabotage. Okay. Okay. That's unfortunate. We just got punished for installing the Pharos instead of the Aket. Do we just lose 2 cards off the top? I think so. I feel like the Aket is better than the average card in our deck. So we're losing 2 off the top. Fine. So we lost Best of Chesvo and Secure and Protect. So we would have, if we like threw away the Aket, we would have lost Best of Chesvo and kept Secure and Protect, which is fine. Let's draw. Let's gain 1. Let's place 1. Oh, and the Subliminal is a Sabotage. Beautiful. So we go install. We do want an Archives Ice, right? Maybe we want Remote Ice, actually. So we're definitely installing the spin. We're definitely playing this Aket. I think it's going on the remote. We're gonna have Begamot issues here. But hopefully they play Simulchip, and they're gonna like Simulchip these Botulisks away. We'll see. And then we're gonna play one more card. I guess it's the Subsidy. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. We're managing this Sabotage so well. Okay, let's keep this wall-to-wall drawing. There's the other Spin Doctor. Love to see that. Okay, we need to advance this Aket. And we have the Rhyme for the Bankar, which is great. So I think we just go install advance credit. This is a little slow. It's a little scary. But they have 2 Botulisks committed on the remote here, so I think it makes sense. They do Bankar HQ. I was wondering if they were going to do that. But like, how are you actually getting through here? We're not, right? What's happening? We're playing Running Hot. NGO can go, and I guess the top card can go. We could also throw out 2 agendas and hope they don't run. I don't think we're in a comfortable enough spot to do that. They're going to have too many clicks. Oh, we lost the other Mess in Chesvo. That's really bad. Aket Res is really good for us. Yeah, we could have taken the risk on the 2 agendas there, but like, I'm not about to just throw a game on stream. That's super interesting. They don't want to give me the advancement and the credit, and they're willing to forego the access. This tells me a lot about this player. Um. Oh, okay, never mind. They just didn't realize they couldn't break both. Okay. Yeah, if they were like gonna break the first sub and just bounce, then like then they're never running R&D, I guess. Which is super interesting. We do need to be a little bit careful about the fact there's only 15 cards left. But again, our win con is Clearinghouse. And that's coming. Oh, we're playing Matryoshka. Oh, I guess I knew that, because they discarded 2. That's fine. What's happening? Sure. So if this was like a tournament, you can't allow this because they took core damage twice. And undid, but it's fine. We let it go. Gain 1, put it on a Ket. We drew another agenda. That's fine. So usually what happens with ESA that I found is they don't want to run HQ because of all these Winchesters. What do we do here? I could purge. I could hoard them on archives. I don't hate that, actually. Because hoard them on archives sets up sabotage into archives. Because I should have a good idea of whether or not they can get into archives. So I think... but it's so slow. It's so slow. Maybe we go Hoard'em Archives, and we kill the wall-to-wall, and we advance this once. I don't want to waste our clicks here. But this is risky. They lost Mad Dash. That's fine. I think if we mill 2 out of HQ and they run into archives, they can actually get in. Are they actually going to be able to get into archives, though? I'm going to say I doubt it. We're going to take a risk here and throw 2 cards out from hand. Because as things stand, they don't have a way of breaking this Hoard'em, right? So, as things stand, we can spin these cards back, and we don't want to mill ourselves too quickly, and we do want a way of getting the agendas out of our hand. Okay. I'll res Pharos, I guess. They still SDS. Fine. That's fine. They need 3 agendas to win. That's only 2. Only the last agenda matters. Ooh, if they run archives here, they win. Don't do it. Okay. I guess we lost. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4? Yeah. That's unfortunate. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't know. I don't know if we do anything different there. Like, here's the thing, right? We could have milled 2 off the top. Oh, actually, if we milled 2 off the top, we would have just lost on the finality, which is hilarious. So I guess in hindsight, we would have lost either way. But yeah, like we could just hold the agendas in hand with the double Winchester and win off this clearinghouse. It was super close. They committed Botulus to the remote early, which ended up costing me ice onto the remote, which I think was fine. Like, the Botulus was going to be able to break ice no matter where my ice was. So, me committing ice to the remote was in response to Botulus being on the remote. And had they committed less Botulus to the remote, I would have put more ice on R&D, but then Botulus would have been on R&D. So, I don't think this game goes too differently based off of the lines we took and didn't take. Interesting game. They only have one card in hand, so unless they draw last click, they do actually die to Clearinghouse. But yeah, I guess like they just had to go for the Archives run, which is rather aggressive. Like, not everybody does that, right? Could you have sabotaged the Spin Doctor instead of an agenda? Yes, but then we lose the last Spin Doctor. But yes, we would have still lost because they accessed 4 cards out of R&D. So they saw 2 agendas, where the first 2 cards were not agendas. Oh, the first card was not an agenda. Yeah. So the first card was ScuvSub. I mean, this is all hindsight, so you can't really make too many decisions off of this. But yeah, it looks like we would have been screwed either way once the finality was played. Biovault going into the remote would have been a big deal if we found a Biovault, because then we could stop the finality. But also we were like pretty close to winning, right? Like think about this. If we didn't find, like, what was the chances on R&D here? There were 4 agendas out of 13. There were 4 agendas out of 13, and we hit 2 of them, which is unlikely to happen. If they hit 0, then they would have stolen 2 out of Archives, given the line that I took. Or I could have just milled 2 and kept the agendas in hand. And in hindsight, they would have still won. But had they not won, then we basically just advanced this Clearinghouse 3 times, and they are going to draw up. Maybe they don't die. We're going to advance it more times, and then they just can't get into here. We were really hoping for them to steal an SDS that turn, because if they steal an SDS that turn, they're probably going to lose a Botulus on the remote, and that just really solidifies this remote. Yeah, so we were in a good spot. Like, this game was, I think, like, it came down to a little bit of unlucky mills and finality access. I lost both Messna Chesfos, and I had like a little bit of an ice deficiency for the remote. I would have loved the tree line to be on R&D, border control, a cat, like any of the ice except for the Sadaka. The Sadaka doesn't really do too much. I guess it would have here. Not really, because they see 4 cards. So I would have seen 2 agendas and shuffled and rolled the dice again. But yeah, if we had another like real piece of ice on R&D, especially a Messna Chesfo, like, game goes super differently. Because they only have 2 credits, right? Like, Messna Chesfo is so taxing. So I think that was the only thing that we were lacking this game, was finding that Messna Chesfo for R&D. But other than that, we're in a great spot. Like, we're on track to the Clearinghouse kill. And I guess this is a useful little story to tell. I was only on 1 Clearinghouse at Crown of Servers, and I added a 2nd Clearinghouse at the end of Friday, the night before Worlds, because specifically of the ESSA matchup. I knew that ESSA was going to be pretty common, and in the very first round of the team event, I essentially had all of my agendas. The ESSA had stolen 2 agendas, and the other 5 agendas were all in Archives. And I had like 4 ice on Archives, just protecting Archives, and I won the game killing them with Clearinghouse. And I realized through playing that game that ESSA puts an insane amount of pressure on you, right? Between Botulus and Bankar, and they play Begamot, so like your barriers are not as good. So there's an insane amount of pressure from ESSA, and because of that pressure, you have to focus all of your resources on protecting centrals, and there's just never, ever, ever any time to score agendas. Also, there's not like one program that you can snipe to win the game. Like, it's not like they play one barrier breaker. So you can't just like snipe a barrier breaker and win the game like you can in Crim. You actually have to score 3 agendas. And it was in playing that game that I realized that in the ESSA matchup, the game plan against ESSA is Clearinghouse. That's the only matchup where that's your, like, that is your one and only game plan. In most other matchups, it is like a key game plan because, again, Clearinghouse is a 7-point agenda. But like against ESSA, you don't have the time to score. They're going to mill you way too quickly. You're going to run out of cards out of R&D. Like, even if you get into a board position where you can score agendas, you probably don't have enough turns left because there's not enough turns. There's not enough cards in R&D for you to mandatory draw. So, yeah, that's. I'm really happy we ran into an ESSA because that's a hole in my description of the BTL that I didn't talk about at all. Was game plan against ESSA is Clearinghouse, and like I think everybody saw, like I held this Clearinghouse from a very, very long time ago, because that's the game plan, and it's really important to go into games knowing with a good idea of what the game plan is if you can. Yeah. Okay. That's Glacier. Yeah. So I'm going to call the stream there. Thank you so much for everybody who caught me live and also to all the people who watch me afterwards. Yeah, I hope you found it useful. I think talks like this aren't very common for Glacier specifically. Like, I know that other channels, like Isangren does really good streams and videos about like the meta archetypes. And like Glacier hasn't been a thing for a long time, and I would argue like it's always kind of there. And I'm somebody who's like, if it's there and if it's good enough, I'm gonna play it because I feel very safe playing Glacier. I hate losing games where I'm playing an aggressive corp deck and my opponent is playing an aggressive runner deck, and you know you're just playing like asset spam, and they go install 2 bankrolls and a bones. And yeah, I guess we just lose. But like Glacier or like ice-based strategies always have something you can do if something goes wrong. Botulus is really good against you. Bankar is really good against you, but you can position your ice in a way that sets you up to beat it. Like Arissana is really good against you because they have Hush, but you can play, like you can turn your deck into a rush deck and play super aggressively in that matchup. So there's always stuff you can do when you're playing a Glacier deck. This is the same reason why when people were playing Sports Metal, like 5 ice Sports Metal or 4 ice Sports Metal was all the rage. And like I always stuck with at least 9 ice. And my Worlds list played 11. And that's because like I feel like with ice you can always figure something out, and you can always make plays with ice that you can't with any other card type. Like if your deck is just filled with assets, what can you do differently, right? It's like you're gonna draw your assets and install your assets. But like if your deck is full of ice, you can put it on HQ, you can put it on R&D, or you can put it on the remote and not ice HQ and R&D. You can advance your agendas really aggressively, or you can advance your agendas really slowly. Like that difference in play and that decision-making ability in game is very valuable to me. And it really lets like a really big change in the result of the game based off of your ability to make in-game decisions, in a way that I feel other decks don't show. Yeah, I hope that was coherent. But yeah, decks that like let you adapt on the fly, I find at the very least I think are more fun. You get to, I feel like you learn a lot more that way, especially because you get to really think about what the runner's position is, how can you change the way that you play to adapt and take advantage of the weaknesses that the runner's board position has. And the more flexible your deck is, and this applies for Corp and Runner, the more flexible your deck is, the more you can adapt to what the runner's doing, and the more you can kind of like recognize and take advantage of situations. There's a lot of talk from some other experienced players about how ice is the most boring part of Corp decks. Yeah. Yup. Yes. But I think ice is the most interesting. Yeah. It's just like, Amani Sinai is a really good asset. Really, really strong. But when you draw it, you're going to install it. And hopefully you get to use it, because you might not be able to get to use it if the runner just like is set up to trash it. But if you do get to use it, like, your decision making with Amani is like very limited. It might be very strong, but it's very limited. So you lose value in being flexible through that card. Whereas like, yeah, ice you can do so many different things with just based off of where you install it. And whether or not you res it, or maybe you don't res it because you want to threaten that it could be something else. Like a face down piece of ice could be anything, right? So sometimes you like don't want to res it even though it's actively good for you because you want to pretend that it might be something else. Like there's so much in ice that is just built in there. Yeah, and like flexibility is both very powerful and very fun. Okay, thanks for coming to my talk about why ice is not the most boring part of Corp decks and why Glacier decks are fun and people should play them more. And yeah, I will see everybody around. Oh, one more comment. The newer Age of Ice is much more interesting with more decisions on where and when to res new effects. Yeah, that's true, right? Like Ping has an on-res effect. So it adds like a whole other dynamic to ice that wasn't present before. So like maybe you don't want to res it this turn and you want to res it on a more important turn. That's something that's really cool. Yeah, that's something that's really cool. Like Ablative Barrier is also an example of like something that's super strong. It adds like very interesting considerations when you're playing against HB. Like you want to poke around early because if you force an HB to res Ablative Barrier, then they don't get the on-res effect if it's not threat 3. And that's really, really good. So I played a game recently. I guess it wasn't me. So Wikinometry and I played a game recently where we were playing Arissana, and she like, we had Cubon in hand, and we were against this Asa who very aggressively installed ice in a new remote. So they like, their turn 1 was like wage workers, ice, res wage workers, install new remote, put another ice, draw, or well, it probably wasn't draw, like take a credit, right? So they had 4 credits. And I was like, we can just take advantage of this by installing Cubon. We can like run the wage workers and Arissana a Cubon onto the ice in front of the wage workers. And if they res the ice, then they're not going to have enough money to res the other ice, so then we can go and trash the Rashida. And if they don't res the ice, then we can just farm the ice for Cubon money. So we go ahead and make that play, and then they res Ablative Barrier. And that's like, excellent, right? Like, now they don't get the on-res effect. But that's such a cool decision to have to make. And I guess maybe the Corp next time won't aggressively install ice against Arissana that way. But like, I think against any other runner that's not Arissana, that's a great play. But Arissana, I guess, can punish that. I will say though, like, Arissana attacks ice in a way that's like so different than other runners. Like, you're not installing icebreakers that break everything. You're installing Trojans that break the ice that it's hosted on. Which means like it's actually super awkward to play. You have to pick a server and run that server, and if you ever want to pivot, you have to slowly pivot. Yeah, I've been playing some Arissana over the last week, and it has been, um, let's just say I've learned a lot about the weaknesses of the deck. Ice previously late game good or early game good, and Ablative straddles the line really well. It does, yeah, yeah. A 2-1, 2-1 in the run. Like I think the design of Ablative is really really cool. Yeah, the design of Ablative is really really cool. I think the design of Tatubola is probably the one that's like the one I dislike the most, because like ping is like an opportunistic res, because maybe the tag matters here, maybe it doesn't, maybe it matters another turn. Whereas like Tatubola is just good, is just really good, and it's just way above the curve compared to the other 2-1 barriers that they released. Whereas like when would you ever not res a Tatubola? Right? So like you don't have that decision making point. Because that a Tatubola's ability is good no matter what is going on. But with that said, Jinteki needs the help. And I've played a lot of Jinteki Glacier. I'm super happy to see Tatubola as a card. So I think that more than balances it. Jinteki needs the help. Jinteki really needed a barrier, and Tatu is amazing for it. But as I said earlier in the stream, like the ice in Jinteki is lacking overall, so hopefully we'll get some more Jinteki ice and Jinteki Glacier can prosper once again. Okay, enough babbling on. This has been lots of fun, and yeah, I will see y'all later. Thanks everybody for watching. Oh, and I probably won't be able to stream before CBI, but CBI is an online event, and I will be able to stream CBI if I play in it, which I'm 99% sure I will be able to. So if we don't talk before then, I'll see y'all on my stream at CBI.